Anna, I'm wondering if Nate should close out this because I think he's using the Google extension instead of the layout mode. And I think that extension has a bugaboo right now. And if he were to close out of the meeting and come back into the meeting, but I don't know if... I'm going to mute and try and call him.
Yeah, my chat doesn't even work now, so... the sound is working now.
Okay, so I think Nate's figured it out. Good job, Nate.
So are we still in transition or are we rolling with the right grid? Anna says yes. Okay. All right. So I will call us back to order to open session to the regular board meeting of September 10th. And there was no action items taken in closed session, so we have nothing to report. And so now we have public participation on non-agenda items, and we have one question that was emailed in. So I'm going to read our little statement and then I'll read the comment. So the following public comment was received by the district using the telecommuting public comment email address. For ease of public participation, it will be read into the record by myself, and this should not be construed as an endorsement of this comment by the district or by myself. So it reads, Dear FBUSD board, I have one question for the board to answer. My question is, why did FBUSD not file a waiver to open the elementary school for in-classroom learning? There is a list of about 13 schools in our county that filed for this waiver, and FBUSD was not on that list. Thank you for the time. Thank you, Chandra Blenko, EA, 250 North Main, Suite F, Fort Bragg, California, 95437, and then a phone number. Okay, so do we want to answer that? I don't know if she's listening, or should we ask that Becky call her? What do you feel comfortable with, Becky?
We can talk about, I'm absolutely happy to answer that if you would like me to answer it now, or we could wait until that time in the agenda where we're talking about the reopening.
Okay.
It's up to you. I don't want to keep her waiting, but I will absolutely call that parent tomorrow as well.
Okay. All right. And that one can't be read during, because it was, well, I guess it is kind of an agenda item, but the waiver is a separate thing. Okay. All right. Thank you. And then, so 3.4 is the approval of the agenda. Is there anything the staff feels needs to be moved or pulled tonight? No? Okay. All right. Then I'll ask for an approval of, or a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. And Mary second. Thank you. All those in favor?
Yes.
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 Okay. Opposed? All right. So the next is our Patriotic Exercise by Trustee Paoli.
I wanted to honor Labor Day since most of us maybe had a 3-day weekend. Labor Day is the first Monday in September. It's a creation of the labor movement and is dedicated to the social and economic achievements of American workers. It constitutes a yearly national tribute to the contributions workers have made to the strength, prosperity, and well-being of our country. The first governmental recognition came through municipal ordinances passed in 1885 and 1886. From these, a movement developed to secure state legislation. The first state bill was introduced in the New York legislature, but the first to become law was passed by Oregon in 1887. During 1887, 4 more states, Colorado, Massachusetts, New Jersey, and New York, created the Labor Day holiday by legislative enactment. By the end of the decade, Connecticut, Nebraska, and Pennsylvania had followed suit. By 1894, 23 more states had adopted the holiday, and on June 28, 1894, Congress passed an act making the first Monday in September of each year a legal holiday. So I just wanted to thank the staff and all of our community for working all their efforts during the pandemic. It's not easy. It's not an easy time to work, and just to take care of yourself. And hopefully you were able to have a break on Monday.
Thank you very much, Diana. All right, and then acknowledgements. It looks like, did any come in after the board packet was out? Any donations or anything for the district that we know of? Okay.
No, but I would like to acknowledge the Children's Fund. They continue to give to the district and give to our schools so that our counselors can support families. So I would like to acknowledge the Children's Fund and the good work they are doing.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, and then we'll move on to communication, and I will give a short, and Diana, please jump in. We had our board chat this morning, so I just kind of want to go over a few things that were topics that were brought up this morning. We had a parent thank us for the letter, or really Becky and staff, for the letter that was sent out yesterday. And several parents talked about distance learning and how that was going, navigating Google Docs, minimizing log in and log off for some of the littles. And then the issue of working families, and then things that are being done with social media. And then there was some concern about some topics discussed in classrooms at the high school. I believe it was at the high school. I'm sorry. I made that jump just because I knew the age of the families. And I think it was a really robust but very good discussion. And I know that Becky was going to take those topics to the ADCO team. But I just want to thank the families for coming. Again, this was the second month that we had a very I say very large. It was 15 that were on this morning, included we had some principals and assistant principals today, but I think we might have to stick with this Google platform even after COVID, because it is getting more families to us and provide the opportunity. And once again, I know I sound like a broken record, but our superintendent is accessible to our families, and even neighboring districts or other districts in our country, that's not an option. So I just want to thank again publicly, Becky, for your work with our families, and that you are always willing to be there at nights and weekends and all the time. So I just want to thank you again for being accessible, and thank the families for participating today. And I think there was some real good stuff that I'm sure Becky took back to the site. So thank you for that. I did have a teacher that couldn't stay on this morning because school started, obviously, but she did contact me and wanted to add to the discussion that they are seeing some real big gaps. So either she's got kids that are doing really, really well, and then she's got kids that are doing really, really poorly. And so she didn't know really what our role was in that. But I just wanted to pass that along too, that that's a conversation that the sites, I think it'll just get pushed down to the sites, that they've got to, figure out how to catch those kids. And they're the people with the boots on the ground. So I'm sure they'll figure out some ideas, but that was her concern. And that the communication, the letter that did go out yesterday, I don't really, maybe it'll go under our board report, but I wanted to figure out which board members may or may not attend that, so we can make sure that that gets covered and the Google invite gets sent to at least 2 of us. So I'll open that to anybody else have any. We did receive a letter from, I think that, I'm sorry, now I forgot, I should have checked. The letter from Monique Wooden, did that come? That was last meeting, right? Okay, sorry, things are getting to be a blur. So I think that's the only communication I had besides those couple things. Somebody want to go next? Or does anybody have any communication?
I was blessed to have about 5 families contact me on Saturday about the political divide on social media bright and early. And then I had a parent call me tonight just to ask about, how the school's addressing it and I said with the meeting. And then it was probably between our 2 meetings or right after our first meeting last month, a family had asked, why the district didn't choose to delay the start of school and wait, have more data with COVID. And they were just asking, why that wasn't an option.
Okay, anybody else? No? Okay. All right, then we will move to public participation on agenda items, and unless something's come in the last little bit.
Nothing has come in.
Okay, and I would just like to let the public watching know that you can not only email ahead of time, but if you have something that you would like to comment throughout the agenda, on the agenda topic, of course, you can email boardmeeting@fbusd.us. Anna checks that, and I try to pause and ask for that so we make sure that you can have input as the meeting's going along. It's not just something that you have to think of ahead of time. So please take advantage of that if you will. Okay, so we'll move on to our board report. Does anybody have any shout outs or things that they've been doing in the district?
Well, I'll start. Not much, but I'm still attending webinars and reading numerous articles and so forth about COVID and education and reopening, and completing our Keenan trainings, which are always fun. And I've joined the distance learning group and working with my granddaughter. And so I'm seeing the other side. It's not an easy task. So I feel for everybody and really want to thank all the staff and all the parents or grandparents or aunts or uncles or whatever caregiver is helping with the kids. It is a monumental task. So thank you.
I'll go next, if that's okay. I had a really good time going to Redwood Parents Club Google meeting. That was really fun. And I find the same thing, Kathy, with the board chat. It's pretty effective to get families together and they can still be present. And, if they can't contribute, but they can still be listening if they have distractions at home. And it was really great. They talked a lot about lots of different issues, but they were trying a few fundraising ideas, maybe a Halloween drop-off, kind of maybe a costume contest or a drive-through popcorn or a readathon, maybe a virtual run. So look out for that. And they were pushing the Parent Square and meal pickup on Wednesdays. And Lundy had given a really nice report about the teachers, that she's incredibly proud of all their efforts that they were attempting and successfully doing careful grouping in whole small groups over the computer, which must be quite a task. And they're just working really hard getting families up to speed with technology, which every day we're blessed with, new hurdles. And I also, after the fact, watched California Department of Education had an LEA, which is a webinar to review the state public health guidance. and Dr. Pon was the main speaker. And I just can't stress enough for folks to look that up online and listen to all the options or non-options, however you want to look at it, that the schools have. And what I thought was kind of cool about this webinar is there were a lot of stakeholders there. There were parents, CTA, CSEA, CSBA, a big spectrum of folks that have different focuses because they have different roles. So there were some good questions and still a lot of areas that still need to be fleshed out, and some restrictions that we'll talk more about later in the agenda. But I really thought it was nicely done, and it's about 55 minutes, so it's doable. I finished my Keenan's, attended the board chat, like Kathy said, which I thought was a nice group of families that were able to communicate their what they're experiencing or not experiencing. CSBA publication just came out today, and there's a great article on, which this is a hard time because we all want to be helpers on the board, but that's not really our job. And it has effective leadership during the time of crisis. And really our spokesman is the superintendent, or if we have appointed someone to be a spokesman or woman. And it's hard. We want to help everyone. And I think it's a slippery slope if we, start doing social media stuff, as a board member, because we want to help push things out. But I think there's also, it can lead on to some conversations that should be happening at the site. And that it's hard because I want to help folks that are struggling, but you really need to contact your site or your teacher so they have an opportunity to try to resolve any issues that you're having or not having. So it was just an informative article to keep in mind what we're charged with as a board member. And I believe that's my report.
Any others?
Nothing much. Just want to, a couple things I've been hearing is, one is how long it's great. The food delivery or drop off or pick up, whatever, on Wednesdays is going so well that people, I've been hearing anyway, are having to wait a really long time. So I don't know if there's anything we can do about that. And then I just want to give a shout out to the teachers, especially in the middle and high schools, because I'm hearing how much preparation it takes for just 1 hour of class online. It's a whole new world, and it must be so isolating to have to prepare for everything on your own. And it really, from what I've heard and see myself, it really makes a difference when you spend all that time preparing, and it really shows that the kids really get a lot out of it. So thank you for all the extra work. That's it.
And I just want to add that I completed my Keenan trainings, so it sounds like we should all be current.
Okay, a couple things. So the first thing is I attended the Three Rivers board meeting, and what was awesome is that it was 30 minutes long. So Roger, that is, I am a little envious. You'll be stuck here longer than that just to get to your topic. But it was a great, very positive group of people. They have a new board member that they were interviewing, and I'm sure Roger will talk more about this, but their enrollment's about 100, and they were looking forward to starting. I know they've started since, but I've finished Keenan. That's always a fun-filled event. I attended the Fort Bragg Middle School Parents Club. They too are talking about some fundraisers. They're going to meet and do their budget and things. They have some cool ideas. And then I also was on the high school campus. My niece is struggling with distance learning, so I went to be her little TA. And I looked out the window and just wanted to acknowledge the custodial staff. So they were going around with their PPE and their cleaning supplies, and they were wiping down door handles and doing all the things that is outlined in our are in our agreements with the bargaining. And so I just wanted to, and everybody I saw, including myself, had our masks on and, in and out from outside and, the least amount of contact we can. And anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that they're doing what they say they are. And thank you for everybody's hard work on that. So I think that's it. Okay, we got everybody, right? Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to superintendent report.
So 8.2.1 is the governor's guidance, and you can see in your board packet that we've given you the link to the guidance. And in response to the question that came during public participation about why we did not apply for a waiver, the waiver application was to bring only K-6 kids back. And it was to do so if your county was in the red zone. And I don't know what the colors are now, it's changed. But if we are on the watch list, the waiver would then bypass the watch list and allow you to have kids on campus, even if you were on the watch list. So when we had started negotiating in the summer with both the bargaining units, one of the things that came up from everyone was, if we're on the watch list, do we really want to bring kids back during that time? And especially when the waiver application was due in early August, I didn't feel comfortable asking all of you to apply for a waiver when we were on the watch list and our numbers were growing so significantly. So that's one reason. Believe it or not, the guidance that came out, I want to say it came out last week, 2 weeks ago. I don't have the date for sure, but I had actually contacted the bargaining unit president and said, I would like us to consider a waiver moving forward should the need arise if we don't ever get off the watch list. And I called her, I want to say like 10 o'clock or 11, and at 3 p.m. the guidance had come out. So then it was, okay, we're not applying for a waiver because the new guidance allows us to have small cohorts of students on campus. So that's the reason. Is it a good reason? That's left to opinion. The reality is that we have guidance now from the California Department of Public Health, CDPH, where we are allowed without a waiver, without an application, to have students on campus in groups of no more than 16. When this board packet was written, the guidance was very specific. It was 14 kids and at most 2 adults. They've now loosened that guidance to say 16, that a stable group is 16. It could be 1 adult and 15 kids. It could be 6 adults and 10 kids. But that's the golden number, is 16. So we can do that now. We can bring specialized populations onto campus. And so this guidance is really looking at who are our most needy kids where distance learning is just not working for them. How can we address that? And how can we help our families with distance learning? So now that the guidance is here, this is something that we absolutely can explore. But I need to caution everybody that we have to explore it within the boundaries of the MOUs, the Memorandums of Understanding, that we have with the Fort Bragg District Teachers Association and with the California School Employees Association. So our classified bargaining unit and our certificated bargaining unit, meaning our teachers and our classified. So the guidance was given to you. It's in the board packet. You're welcome to thumb through it yourself. What I found more informative was the FAQs, the frequently asked questions, provided a much better, easier read and understanding for what's in that document. So questions for me on that? Okay, then I'm going to keep moving. Yes, Kathy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so next under the superintendent report is Parent Square. I have to tell you that people who, anybody who's jumped into Parent Square, it's actually a cool little gig. Yes, Diana.
We actually had technical difficulty. I was trying to unmute because I just wanted to clarify, because I have been kind of following it. That was the webinar that I had watched after the fact about the guidelines. So, but does that trigger having to do testing on the testing? The other with the waiver, or if you were to go to a hybrid down the road, you need to be able to have testing for your site. Do we know yet? I know it's still evolving, because it sounds like it's not all
Okay, so it depends on how you read it. So the California Department of Public Health and the CDC recommends that if you have students back on campus, that you have a testing protocol, a testing plan for your employees. And it recommends that that testing protocol be something along the lines of that 50% of your employees are tested every 2 weeks, so that at the end of a month, you've tested half your employees, and then the following month, you test the other half of the employees, so that over the course of 2 months, you've tested 100% of your employees. I have actually asked our legal department, is it recommend or is it required? My concern is I don't know how we can fully require people to be tested. And so there is a debate right now that I'm still trying to funnel through. Is it required or is it recommended? When we have kids on campus, we are supposed to, it's recommended according to the Center for Disease Control on School Guidance and from the California Department of Public Health, it's recommended that we have a testing plan. I asked this question to Michelle Hutchins, who is our county superintendent, and she believes that our county public health officer overrides these two departments because our county public health officer is the one who governs us, and their guidance can be more stringent. It can't be less, but it can be more. And right now, according to Michelle Hutchins, our public health officer is saying that it is required that we have some type of a testing plan. I have called the Mendocino Coast Clinics to figure out, can they support Fort Bragg Unified getting into the surveillance testing schedule, because we have a lot of employees. I don't know if we are the largest employer on the coast, but we're surely in the top 3. So Lucretia believes that if we needed 30 tests a week, and 30 is roughly 12, 13% of our employees, if we did 30 tests a week, if you take 12 and a half and multiply it by 4, you get 50. Then if we did that every week, then at the end of the month, we would have half of our employees tested, and then the other half would go next week. So that's as far as I've gotten with the testing right now. Lucretia has indicated to us that she can support Fort Bragg Unified holding 30 of those tests every week. We haven't gotten to the point where I've called Lucretia and said, hold those tests. We were reluctant about it for the last few weeks because it was taking so long to get the test results back. Now that the clinics is working with, I forget who they're working with, but if you go get tested on Wednesday, the test is coming back on Friday. And if you're getting a test on Thursday, that test is coming back on Monday. So the turnaround time is much better. And so they've got it moving and grooving. So now the testing is becoming more effective. So I need to figure out that nuance of, is it required? And then if it's required, what kind of enforcement do we have with our employees without violating people's rights?
Thank you for clarifying that. And I know Dr. Pon in that webinar was saying that the state is really responsible of supporting us at a local level with the resources they have at the state level, saying that there's going to be a new lab ready and open, and that the turnaround was 2 days for about 80% of the tests, and that health insurance are required to pay for the testing, which I don't know if that's like an insurance legislation. I don't know. She didn't specify how that was going to work, and that rapid tests were coming. So that was kind of promising. And she said anything that was more local question to ask the health officer. So thank you for checking in on that.
And I know the clinic has a grant to help pay for the tests, and they have special pricing with their service right now, or the lab that they're using. So I think we can pull it off. The question is how enforceable it is on our end. And I'm trying to figure that out before we put out an edict or a mandate that says you will go get tested.
I had a quick question. So,
hold on just a second, Marianne.
Yep.
Diana, you're on here twice. Okay, go ahead, Marianne. We'll make it because I'm not echoing now.
Oh, okay. So when it says the specialized and targeted support services, we wouldn't be talking about bringing all staff members back. So would 100% of all staff members need to be tested over that period of time, or just the ones that are on campus?
So that's the debate right now. My belief is that number one, it's recommended. And number
Right.
two, it's for the staff members who have access to those children.
Okay, that's what I would think. Which would be much more doable.
Well, it would be much more doable, but it would also include the custodians and the secretaries and the principal,
Right.
anybody who's on site when a child comes on site.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we have lots of teachers teaching from their classroom. I will say that the test is pretty quick. It's not incredibly comfortable. At least I didn't think it was incredibly comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But it is fairly quick. It is not labor intensive, and the people at the clinic do a very fine job of trying to do it quickly and is seamless. I don't know if that's the right word, but
Quick.
anyway, we'll just leave it at that.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions on the guidance? Okay, Parent Square. So I have to tell you, change is always difficult. I don't care who you are. It's difficult. And when Sarah Bushnell came to us and said, okay, we need to move to Parent Square, the first thing I did was twitch because it was new. I will say that I am super impressed with the app, the app on my phone. I'm impressed with how I can use it right from my laptop. I am impressed on how I can use it right from my phone. I like the feed that comes in. I can check all the schools. Teachers and parents can pretty much communicate back and forth. What I also love about it is when we send a message district-wide, we can remove the students from the message. And that was one thing that a parent had actually said. I opened up my child's email for the first time and there were all these messages from the district. My first grader doesn't need the parent letter. And so I was thrilled when going through the features on Parent Square, how much more specific we can be on how we send messages, where we post them, if it's an alert. So I would encourage every parent to download the app if you have a phone that carries apps, or if you have an iPad or some type of a tablet, to download that app. It is a wonderful way to communicate with your teacher directly. It's almost like a text message. It has a post and a feed. So if you missed a message from your child's teacher, you can go back into the feed and look at what's been said. If you have multiple children, you just toggle between the sites so that you don't have to, you can keep it all right there in the palm of your hand. So that is our new communication system. It's called Parent Square. The app is free. It's on the Google Play, am I saying that correctly? The Google Play site or the Apple iTunes site. So we just wanted to put that out there that we do have a new communication system. I'm incredibly pleased with it and thrilled that we made that leap. Any questions on Parent Square? Yes, Diana.
So we will probably only be getting communication as a parent through the Parent Square, like letters and correspondence and alerts. And the Aries is now just the grade book, and we keep those two. And then how are we expected? In your letter of yesterday, you stated number one that every parent's going to get a communication from a teacher. Should we expect it from Parent Square, or is Aries meeting that obligation, or is that a direct email through like Google Classroom or a direct email from the teacher? Like, what are we looking for? What app are we looking for this communication?
So it's going to come in various forms. It could be a phone call. Teachers could do an email. Teachers might send an email that says, hey, look in Aries, it's time to check grades. If you want something more specific than an email that says it's time to check grades, then I would encourage every parent to email their teacher and say, how's my kid doing? So if you require more than the minimum, which if I'm looking at the high school, I'm thinking you send out an email that says Aries gradebook is up to date. And many of our teachers at the high school, on their grades, you will see some notes with some of them. So if you aren't seeing the specificity that you'd like, or if you have more intricate questions about your child, I would encourage all parents to either pick up the phone and call their child's teacher, or to compose an email out to their child's teacher. with our grades K through 8, I believe teachers are, again, email, Parent Square, or a phone call. And if you are concerned with how you are going to receive that communication, reach out to your teacher and ask. One of the things that I was impressed about this morning from the board chat is that there were lots of questions for parents about their kids' classes, their teachers. And I probably said 3 or 4 times, email your teacher, reach out to your teacher. And I think folks are trying to stand back and give the staff a lot of space to get used to this new environment. Thank you for that. If you have a question, though, please get it answered sooner than later. Because all that's going to happen is that if you had answered the question earlier, then it may have triggered something with the teacher to do something differently so that services are better sooner. So again, reaching out to your child's teacher, asking those questions is hugely important, because if you have the question, 9 times out of 10, there's another adult who has a very similar, if not the same question. So Parent Square is our new information system right now. I'm very excited about it. I know our teachers are too. And there are lots of how-to videos. We will get some how-to videos posted on our website and get that ready for you. Other questions on Parent Square? Yes, Kathy.
Just it has the ability to be in Spanish. If I had a primary language, it comes in Spanish.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes. So you pick your primary language, and we can actually send voice messages now. So for instance, if I wanted our wonderful interpreter, who has a lovely Spanish speaking voice, to read a message instead of typing it, I could give her the message, ask her to record it, and then we can send out the recording through Parent Square. So it's her voice and there's no text.
It's super easy to use. I mean, I'm pretty impressed with it. It feels like a networking system, and your teachers are everyone's really responsive that I've tried. So it's pretty cool. And I was happy to hear that they can, choose to just look at it on their desk, their laptop or desktop.
Anything else? Okie dokie. The next thing is 8.2.3, school meals. I just wanted to reiterate to families how important it is to just take advantage of the school meals. I've had a number of people say, you know what, Becky, we don't want to take away from the people who need the meals. So just so everybody understands how it works, we are a community eligibility program. That means every single one of our FBUSD students receives free meals, regardless of family income. And what I would say to every family out there is, please go get the meals. Because every meal bag that we distribute, it's reimbursable to us. And it means that we are filling our general fund contribution because of those reimbursed meals. So don't feel guilty about it. Go and get the meal. And what I would also say to families is, even if you feel like you've gotten a raise this year and your family is financially solvent, which is fantastic, get the meal, and if it saves you $20 a week, put that $20 a week in your child's college fund. Look at it that way. If it provides a little bit of relief in some way, shape, or form, then take the meal. If you have a neighbor who's needy, take the meal. There's lots of things in there that can help. And for families who need more than what the meals provide, I have to tell you, I am so impressed with the food bank. I have never been more impressed with the food bank than I am at this very time of our lives. Amanda Frege is the director. She's doing a phenomenal job. They received a grant to provide extra meal boxes for coastal families with children. So you don't have to register. You don't have to give them your name. You really can go up, and it's on Wednesdays. So it coincides with our meal distribution. And they give out food that Fort Bragg Unified can't give out. We can't give out raw eggs. They can. We can't give out uncooked rice. They can. Uncooked pasta. They can. So they're doing a wonderful food box for families with children. And again, there's no reporting on it. So if you're nervous about it, don't be nervous. Go and pick up a box for your family. And again, if it's helping you and to save you $20 a week, put that $20 a week in a savings account for your children, for their college, for something that you need down the road. Every little bit helps, and this is an investment in your family. So please take advantage of the meals. Any questions on the student meals?
I just had a follow-up to Scott's comment about the lines. So I've gone every week since school started, and this week I was running late because of work, and I went at 2:45. There was not a soul there, and I got the same food, quality of food that I would have got. I've been there at 1. The line wasn't bad. 1:30, real bad, but it moves fast. I mean, they're really shuffling the food quickly, and it does move. But anyway, adjust the time if you can. And it again, 2:45, there wasn't a soul around, and I got the same quantity of food.
We see that at the district office as well. There are ebbs and flows. So sometimes the line is all the way down, to Chestnut, and then sometimes there's no one. And I would recommend to folks, don't come at 1. Coming after 2:00, believe it or not, is your best bet. But now watch, next week at 2:00, it'll be through the roof.
I have to just say the same with Kathy just said, that I've gone at different times, and they are pretty efficient there. And this week they had the keypad, so they were able to punch in the numbers. And either way, it's super. They're doing a really great job, and it's a great service. So I appreciate all their hard work.
So they're doing a great job, and hats off to our nutrition services people. If you ever get the chance, board members, I'm going to invite you to peek your head in, fully masked, of course, into one of the cafeterias. It is impressive to see the bags that are out and how they are moving along. I had the opportunity to go and watch Redwood for just a little bit last week. I think it was Friday. It was impressive. I mean, every table was down, and every table must have had 30, 40 bags on it, and they were just boom, 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 boom. And someone had said, we really would like to see more fresh fruits and vegetables. And the hard part is that when you are creating and when you are getting 800 bags of food ready, anything that goes out on those tables has to be shelf stable. And so that we are limited on what we can provide in that way. So just know that Pilar's doing the best.
I think it's impressive. I mean, there's 2 fruits and 2 vegetables, I think, every week. So I was pretty impressed.
They're doing a great job, and Pilar really makes sure that she finds what she can within what's acceptable under the FDA guidelines. So.
Kathy, I just received a comment on the previous item on the agenda, the Parent Square. Jamie Alexander, Vice Principal at the high school, says that parents can sign up for a weekly grade report on Aries. So I believe they go into their Aries account and sign up. But if you have any problems, give the high school a call.
Okay. Thank you, Anna, for stopping us. Okay. Anything else, Becky? Okay, so we're going to turn it over to the Three Rivers Charter School report. And Roger, I just want to acknowledge your school's loss this week and know that we've been thinking a lot about you. And please let us know if we can do anything. I know Becky's offered some things from the district, but please let us know if there's anything we can do. And our thoughts are with you.
I appreciate that. It was quite a loss for us. Very close little school, and the kids were very close with Miss Tully, and unfortunately she passed. But it's a traumatic event. It really has impacted the teachers as well, but they're strong, and we're working through it, and have a lot of different counseling services that we're pulling in through the county as well as through Fort Bragg. Our counselor met with your counselors yesterday, and she really enjoyed that support that she got from them. And they're providing some assistance to her as well. So, and they've made themselves available if we need any help. So I appreciate that. So thank all of you for that. Okay, so I'll go ahead and go into my presentation. Is that the present now button that I want to hit? Anna, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct, Roger. Yeah, so press the button and then it will tell you or give you the option of what it is you want to present from the screen you have.
All right. All right, give me 1 second. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, we can see it, Roger.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, so this is going to be an update on this next year. I sent a packet. Hopefully you had a chance to take a look at that. And basically the way our enrollment is breaking down for this year, we only have 83 students. We're bouncing back and forth between 83 and 100. We're swinging back and forth, people doing different things. Some of our families have gotten out of, have dropped their enrollment due to they want something else. They don't want to do the distance learning. And then we've had a few more come on. So it's kind of moving around on us. But basically the breakdown on that is 75 of our students are within Fort Bragg Unified School District's district area, and about 8 of them are in the Mendocino area. Our total enrollment with that is 83. And just a note that we transferred to Fort Bragg Unified from last year, 18 students, and there were approximately 11 that have come to our school from Fort Bragg Unified. Our Hispanic population has continued to increase, so we're still doing well with that. We're up to 35% now from where we were last year. Last time I presented to you, we were close to 30%. So that's going well. IEP students, we have 7 students and 2 students with 504s, which are, of course, supported by Fort Bragg. And our SED kids are at 70%. I'm supposed to present to you a breakdown by the grades. This is what the breakdown is. And then on the wait list, we have some more students. The reason why it doesn't automatically transfer in, some people want to wait. They don't necessarily want to enroll right now. And other kids want to come in where we have full classes. So we only have 2 classes that actually have space in them. Our middle school 7th, 8th grade class and our 1st, 2nd grade class. As far as our staff support, we didn't hire anybody new for this year. We now have 3 credentialed teachers. We have an intern teacher who has taken over the 5th, 6th grade. That's Miss Adams. She's working on completing her credential program now, and she was moving along to move into a teaching position anyway with us in a few months. So she's going to go ahead and take over the 5th, 6th grade class, and then we're bringing in some support for her. So we'll be okay for this year, and the students know her. She's been in that classroom for 3 years now, I believe, and so they're all familiar with each other, and she's been working with them on Zoom and doing the other programs. So that's fine. We have, 3 classroom aides, and they all have college degrees or very significant experience as a classroom aide. So we don't have any new personnel in those positions. We do have personnel that are available to provide reading support as well as we have a counselor on staff, and we have a person doing nothing but academic support. So with our population of 83, we're able to provide a lot of support for our kids. The food program, we're no longer using FBUSD for our food program this year. We're kind of launching out on our own. We haven't started yet, but we're planning on starting it next month. And we're just setting up our program now. And I'm working with the state as well as some suppliers. And I just met with them again today. So that should be starting in just a few weeks. And we're planning on doing a simple breakfast. So we're working on providing that. Of course, as far as giving the results of our state testing for last year, we didn't do the CASP. We still are doing the NWEA, which is the Northwest Evaluation Association testing. And we also use them to do our fluency testing for our reading programs. So those are still in place. So we're able to establish benchmarks using those systems. We're just working with them right now as far as through the distance learning, just the right way to do that. And assessments are going to be a little bit tricky. We are still supposed to do the CASP this year, the Smarter Balance. And I've been attending various different webinars as far as how to do that and what's acceptable and how much parent involvement should there be. There's just all kinds of logistical problems that we're working on for that. I've attached the current budget, and we're actually doing slightly better this year as far as our budget goes. We'll be in the positive, mainly because they're using last year's P2 attendance for that. And we don't have an issue as far as cash being available. So even when the deferments occur, which there's supposed to be 4 of them this next year, it really will not have an impact on us. We'll be okay as far as cash goes. Hopefully you can see this. This is a snapshot of our budget. But as you can see right here, for this next year, we're projected to come out to the good about $4,200. The following year, we'll be in a deficit, just mainly because of our headcount and needing to get that additional 5th class up and in place. But until we do, we're probably going to be running a little bit of a negative. As far as our budget goes, we're not showing some of the revenue that we'll be realizing as far as the COVID grants, the CARES, and a few other things that are coming in. We don't show it until we see it, just because sometimes it's a little bit unpredictable. Outstanding legal issues, we don't have any. There aren't any lawsuits in place, and we haven't had any parents file any complaints. Facility suitability, the facilities is in fine condition, needs some maintenance work, and we're working with the college on that. But again, the space is too small, and until we work out a solution on that, we'll always be crying about that. We have a lease in place that expires June 30th, 2021. The college has not been willing to do a longer term lease with us, so we're still working with them on that. We'd like to do a longer term deal. I provided you evidence of our insurance coverage, so you should have that. And last year, as far as our suspensions and expulsions, we had one incident, and there were 3 students involved, and they were suspended for a day. As far as the learning continuity plan, a few things. We had developed our LCAP for this year, along with the federal addendum. So we basically took that. We had several meetings last year and worked with our parents on it. Of course, we had to move that over to an opening plan for this year. So we've done that, and we've moved basically what was asked for and what was desired in that plan, and created our continuity plan. We had a meeting with our parents earlier this summer, and we discussed what they were looking for. And of course, it keeps changing a little bit. This is about the third plan that I've put together in the last few months, just because of things shifting so much. So one of the things that I'm doing with our parents, and they seem to be okay with this, is I'm doing a monthly review with them so they have a way to plan for the following month. The week by week thing doesn't work, and it doesn't help them as far as their employers go. It doesn't help the students. It doesn't help the teachers. It's kind of like feeling like you're getting jerked around quite a bit, because I think it's a work in progress for everybody. So as the rules change, as the agreements change, as the legality issues change, the plans needed to change. So what I've put in place with my families is that by the third week of each month, I'll be reviewing the overall situation of the county and where we're at, and for the state, of course, and then what we're going to be doing over the next several weeks for the following month. So for instance, for the month of September, we had decided in August we would be doing the distance learning. And as we're headed towards the end of September, with the new color coding program that the state has in place, well, the county is in purple, which means that schools are really, it's not recommended for schools to open. It's fine for them to bring in small groups of kids that need extra support or special ed services or something like that. But you really are not supposed to be teaching those kids on campus without a waiver put in place. So the waiver is the exception. It's not the rule. And I just really feel, and I believe my parents are in agreement with me, and the staff definitely feels this way, that if there's an unsafe situation at school, or there's a potential that kids are going to be picking up COVID, that it's better not to bring them in if I don't have to bring them in. So our plan is to keep it as safe as possible. That's our first priority, the welfare and safety of the kids. And then if it's safe, then we'll move to the next. So as the county moves into the red, we haven't gotten there yet. We have to get our positivity rate down below 8%. And right now, we're running right around 10 in the county. You have to run that way for a couple of weeks. So every time they review that, we're still a little bit high as a county. So it looks like we're going to be going into the month of October, and I'll decide this in about a week and a half or so. And we're going to be saying that we're going to stay at the long distance, or the distance learning, program. If we move into the red and it becomes safe to do so, then we'll move into the hybrid system. So I didn't present the plan showing the hybrid system because we're just not there yet. But as far as the distance learning, the teachers are doing their absolute best to maintain the continuity that's needed for the children's education. And I think they're doing a great job. There are a couple of things that they're doing. Each of them has their own style and their own methods for providing the curriculum. And as they present these and they come up with good ideas, we're always communicating, we're always talking and working together, and the teachers are very, very close. So they're sharing ideas, and we're coming up with kind of a set of best practices for us. And of course, we're working on studying what the other schools are doing as well. For instance, Kim, in the second grade class, has developed a format where the kids can go in, and it's a picture of their classroom. It looks like their classroom, and Kim has in the video, but the kids can click on different items in the classroom to do what they need to do. So if they wanted to access Zoom that day, if they were supposed to be doing some kind of meeting with the teachers, there's a little computer sitting there that says Zoom on it, and the kids learn that that's where they click. And she's created that in their assignments for the day. It's written on a whiteboard. So it's very clickable, easy to access, and the kids can see what they need to do. So there's things like that that the teachers are doing, including different platforms they're using. And we're always listening for feedback and getting a lot of feedback from the parents. And even though they don't like the distance learning and they feel like it's a bit of a strain for some of our parents, we're trying to assess any issues or problems and help them troubleshoot any issues that they have. And we've been able to provide either help them with their internet or to provide a means for them to have internet. They all have computers and they're all working. There's only a couple families that we're struggling with on getting them online, and we're talking to them. And we're also making sure that our attendance, we're tracking the attendance, that we have an interactive element every single day that the teachers are doing with the kids, and they're available for the parents. Most of the teachers have provided a period of time every day that it's kind of an open office. Call me, I'm here. They'll either do a Zoom meeting with them or talk to them on the phone, and they're always available. So there's lots of communication happening, and I think it's working pretty well. So anyway, overall strategy, of course, is to maintain the education level best as possible. We want it to be a safe environment for everybody. I want the teachers to be comfortable. They're allowed to either do their Zoom meetings in class or they can do it from home. I don't care. And some of them are going back and forth. They come in, they prepare, they work, and then they Zoom from home, or they connect with the kids at home. But I have not heard any issues with parents not being able to communicate with their teachers or having an issue from a communication perspective. So that's working out pretty good. We have the safety protocols in place, and we're practicing those. Everybody that's on our campus is wearing a mask, washing their hands, keeping the 6 feet or more distance. And when the parents have to come on site, normally the teachers arrange for pickups and drop-offs to happen outside. They're using the picnic tables and their space. Today, the 3-4 class had a pickup and a drop-off, and she's using 2 days to do the class, but they're all spaced at least 6 feet apart, and the parents are coming in and they're all recognizing and respecting that. So that's working pretty good. And then any teaching materials they need, any emergency supplies that we need, we've been able to get. We've been supported by the county as well as through the state. And I don't think we're short on anything. And of course, troubleshooting whatever comes up, that's working. We have a plan in place for the hybrid system. We were planning on doing the hybrid system as we started into the summer, but put that on hold. So we have pickup, drop-offs. We have a system as to how we would move the kids in on Monday and Tuesday, have the other group in on Thursday and Friday. We would use Wednesday for cleaning and Saturday for cleaning between the groups. And then we have arranged our recesses. So the kids are separated. They're able to maintain, the social distancing they should. And we're ready to go to that whenever, the county gets to the point where it says it's time to go there. As far as input into the continuity plan, our parents, again, they want to see a continuity as far as our programs go, that we keep those things in place, including an after-school program for the kids. So we're ready to do that when we can. Some of these things we can't do right now. We're keeping all the support in place. We've discontinued our musical program just because we don't have a physical space where we can do it. But we're doing pretty much all the other programs. And whenever we can do an extracurricular activity, for instance, one of our aides is going to be holding a weekly art studio. It's an open studio time for anybody to come onto Zoom, and she assists them with and gives them guidance as far as art and their art projects. And sometimes parents and other teachers sneak in on those meetings too. So we're doing things like that wherever we can. Let's see, we're continuing with our EL support, and that's working fine. Our parents would like to see a sports program. We can't do that at this time, but again, we're always talking about it and trying to figure that out. And then as far as the parents accessing the work that the kids are supposed to do, a lot of our programs that we have in place are for the parents. This video I was talking about with Kim, she created a video, and other teachers are doing this too, where they have walkthrough instructions, and it's really geared towards the parents. And they can look at it, they can watch the video, and they can walk through as to how to do it, because once they know, then they can show their children how to do that, and that works better. So that's basically it. Well, sorry, I lost you there for a second. Okay. Is there anything that I can answer, any questions I can answer for you?
So Roger, I just want to acknowledge that you've done everything that we've asked you to do as far as increasing your demographics to be more like ours. I think your EL population is a little low, but that's okay. You'll get there. So thank you for addressing those things and improving the curriculum and doing all those little nuances to make it better for your students. So thank you. And I have to say that I am impressed with your board. They're a good group of people.
Thank you. Yeah, they are good.
And thank you for including your the learning. What is it? It's the new LCAP, the learning continuity and attendance plan that was through, and it looks like you are reaching out to all your families, which is the hard part, because we've never had as much contact with our families as we have now. And then what particular, do you have to put that in I don't know the learning continuity format yet that well. Do you have to put your CARES money, like how you're spending it, or that's not really the purpose of that document? I mean, what you're going to be using it. And what if you have extra, you can't even spend all your money? Do you have to give it back?
No, but there's some question on that, because they still want it tied to your supplemental and your concentration funds that you get. And you're still supposed to be addressing your unduplicated students with that. But this program, this plan is kind of part of what we were doing with the LCAP, but it goes a little bit different because of the COVID situation. So I've attended maybe 3 different sessions with accountants on how to account in this continuity plan. And they don't always agree, so I think it's still a work in progress on that. So I think you need to make sure that your supplemental and your concentration funding is being spent properly for unduplicated kids. But then as far as the numbers lining up and then spending all the money for the grants and some of the other things, I think that doesn't necessarily have to be accounted for in this. But it needs to show, and it needs to be part of the planning. So we're going to find out, because this has to be submitted. Well, I'll be officially submitting this I'll be giving the plan to you, to the county, and to the state. and they all want to see it by the end of September 30th. I just have to go through one more approval process with our board next week, and then I'll be submitting it. So we'll find out.
And Roger, I think the question that Trustee Pioli was asking is, if you don't spend the money, do you have to give it back? And that is the case, that if you don't spend the money, the COVID money, the learning loss mitigation, the CARES money, that has to go back.
Yeah.
And then,
that money.
And then just one clarifying question. So you have declining enrollment. This was before COVID, or this is due to COVID, do you think? I mean, your opinion.
I think it's kind of a combination. I believe what happened was that we had one of the things that kind of hit us a little bit. Casper Creek was shutting down this next year. And we had a huge enrollment from that school. And of course, that takes space and that takes time. And then they started talking about doing some kind of homeschooling program. And then a lot of them actually pulled back out just about a month ago. So it was kind of a combination. I think there was some things like that that happened. And it just happens in our school where we can easily get pushed around by 10 or 12 kids, moving one way or the other. But we have kids there and we're working through them. It just takes us a while to contact the families and for those people to decide what they're going to do, the ones that are waiting. So we're down to 83. It should be up to, I'd like it with our size and everything to be at least I would like it to be at 100. And 94 and 95 is good too. But we'll see if we can get back up there. We're still working on it. It's just a lot of people right now are very reluctant because they're like, they don't like the programs, they don't like the distance learning, and they figure if I'm going to be at home, I'm just going to do it myself, and I don't want to go on Zoom, and so there's a lot of different feelings I think going on right now.
Thank you for your report.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, and thank you too. I'll reiterate what Becky was saying, that you've done everything we've asked, and everybody's under some certain, unforeseen circumstances. So I'm sure you will continue to address the demographics and your numbers for enrollment and things like that. So thank you very much for your attention to that. And we hope they get through this rocky time with your staff and students and have a great school year.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to sign off. Thank you.
Roger, let's not need anything.
Okay, bye.
Okay. All right, so that moves us to 8.4, the county investment report. And it's, my memory serves me right, this is an annual thing that we get to see. And I'll turn it over to Wendy.
Yeah, it actually it should be a little more often than annually. This is the year-end report, but it doesn't include the audit yet because that hasn't been done. This is just mostly to show you that the county is investing the funds according to their their directives. So if you look at it, you can see that it's a very conservative bunch of investments that they have. I really should be bringing it to you quarterly. We missed a couple quarters. I'm not sure. They changed how they were delivering it, and we kind of lost track of them for a few months. But now I know where to go get them. So checking periodically to see if they're there, and then once they have their audit done, we'll present that as well.
So,
okay, Diana.
I always am puzzled by this, and I thought that it was a different agency because the format looked way different, because I think last year was a 36-page document, and I always thought it was from the County Office of Education. This is the whole county, right?
This is the county pool. This is the county investment pool. So it's all of the districts and other agencies too. So they pool the money together. They invested in a combination of shorter and longer term items, and they're always very conservative, and they've also been moving towards more green investments as well.
Because I was surprised, if I was reading it right, it looked like it was it's now a higher value than last year. And given all of but I guess this is June 30th ending, I was just surprised of the growth. So they're doing a good job.
They're doing a good job. And again, the nature of those particular, there are a lot of bonds investments there, and the value of those has gone up because of the uncertainty of so many other things. So those types of investments are more attractive.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So we have anybody from CSEA, but Anna, did anybody email in or submit anything?
Nothing has come in. No.
Okay. All right. And same for FBDTA? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So now we'll move on to the approval of the consent items. So these are traditionally non-controversial and routine items. And are there any concerns about any of the items?
There is one. There's an error, Kathy. On page 5 of the personal action report, we had Adam Kubo at Noyo. He's at Fort Bragg High School.
Okay. So was that corrected? I didn't look today, or do we make the motion with the correction, or we have to pull it?
I don't think we can pull it.
Yeah. Well, Wendy.
You can make the motion with the correction.
Okay. All right. So does everybody hear that Adam Kubo actually works at Fort Bragg High School, not at Noyo High School? So when we do make the motion, if we do so, please make sure that's in your motion. Okay. Anything else? Oh, Diana.
Was there was a large expense in the warrants? Was that addressed? Was the iReady?
The iReady. So the iReady is an online program that we purchased for Redwood Dana Gray Middle School and Alternative Education. It's part of our learning loss mitigation funds. And the wonderful thing about iReady is that it is completely online. It is English, language arts, and mathematics. It has a whole format of assessments and screeners that teachers and our sites can use to identify where kids are in their academic levels. And then teachers can assign lessons based on those levels. And it can be for remediation, or if we have a kiddo at grade level, it can be for enrichment. So there's much more that iReady can do. But the nice thing about it is that the lessons can be incredibly small. So they're not like these 50, 60-minute lessons, but like a 10-minute lesson on this particular subject or a 15-minute lesson on this particular topic. And because it's completely online, it was a program that we felt could help us during the COVID times. So that's how we use some of our money. And that's why you see it as a large warrant, because we just paid for it to get it started for the start of the school year.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. If we're okay with those as they stand with the correction of the site, I'll ask for a motion.
I move to approve the consent items, making the correction for Adam Kubo being at the Fort Bragg High School.
I'll second.
Okay. And Diana, can you read them, please?
9.1 warrants for dated September 2nd, 2020. 9.2 are minutes for the special meeting of July 30th, 2020, the regular board meeting August 13th, 2020, and special board meeting August 19th, 2020, and 9.3, the personnel action report.
Okay. All right. Those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carried. Okay, so I'm going to ask that we take a short break, let's say 10 minutes or 9. We'll come back at 7:30. Have a little stretch break, and we'll be back at 7:30. Ernie, thank you for everybody being back on screen on time. And so now we're moving to the action items this evening. And just to stop, do we have anything that's come in from the public, Anna?
No, we've got nothing come in.
Okay. All right. So the first one is our 10.1. This is our item that will continue to be on our every agenda regarding reopening and return to school. So I don't know if we want to continue on with the governor's guidance discussion or if we want to go on a different tangent. I'll leave that up to the board.
So we agreed to have this on action every month at every meeting so that if the circumstances in our community and our county had changed, that the board was in a position to already have this as an action item so that we would be ready and prepared. So that's why this is on the agenda at this time. The new guidance for the small cohorts does not impact this. It impacts bringing small groups of students onto campus. This is about bringing all kids back in some way, shape, or form. The new guidance that came out does not allow us to bring small groups back every day, meaning that we can't bring back the whole school. So if we brought the whole school, let's say that we were going to open school and we're going to use this guidance to bring back 20% of our kids on Monday, then 20% of our kids on Tuesday, so that kids could come to school one day a week. It doesn't work that way. That guidance doesn't allow for that. It allows for small specialized groups. So this right now, this action item is not something you can really take action on because we can't bring kids back because we are not allowed to because our county is still on the watch list, or we're in purple. I believe that's the color that we're in. But if anybody has any questions for me.
So Becky, quickly, what happens at red and then orange and then
and I'm not completely versed with the colors, but what happens at red is that it means that that your county has to be in that place for 3 weeks. And then when they're there for 3 weeks, then they can move into orange. Then when we're into orange, then we can, I believe, and Diana, you have to help me with this one. I think at orange, we can bring kids back. I have to go back and look. I'm not completely versed on it, so I apologize. But you have to go into the levels, and I think you can. I'm afraid to say things on air, but you go through the colors, and when you get to the right color, you can bring kids back, and not full time, but like I think orange is when we can bring kids back no more than 25% of the kids, their levels, and I'm just not up to speed with it, so I apologize. And to be honest with you, I'm not up to speed with it because of the fact we're in purple. And it takes us 3 weeks in red to get out of purple.
Right. And I think that I keep going back to that webinar. It was pretty informative, but it's the blueprint for safer economy. And you have to go into the COVID-19 on this website and you look for your county to see what's open. And so there's only 4 colors, and they purposely didn't pick a green because they'll feel like we'll probably have to mask for quite some time. But they're still trying to flesh out. So really, you shouldn't feel bad because they don't even know how it's all working because they took all the old indicators away from the old watch list and all of that. And now they only have 2 indicators that tell us what color we're in. And our county is fighting because how could we be purple just like LA, county? It's kind of strange, even though they do the math, to do the 100, how many people are in 100,000. But it still doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you think of it, common sense wise. And they're going to even input some sort of health equity parameters because there are, especially in our county and the state, there are higher suicides due to having people boxed up and not able to do their living because everyone's essential because everyone needs to live and make a living. And there's pockets of industries that aren't open. So I think that there's still a lot of unknown on how, and they had one case, I don't want to call it a case study, but someone had called in and said that they were due to start because they'd waited the 2 weeks because this was kind of before this new tiering system came out. They were due to start on, 14th of September. Well, in that meantime, they ended up going on the purple. And so they couldn't they went backwards. So it is still rapidly changing. And what you're planning for, it can be pulled out from underneath you.
And that was really the message that I heard when I was on the webinar, is that it's so uncertain that, and we can even see that from our county, from week to week, the numbers that are reported are really based on who's taking the test and how many tests that were given. So the surveillance test is actually hugely important because that shows our positivity rate. And the hard part right now is that the people who are really testing are people who have symptoms. So our positivity rate is going to continue to increase. So I am not completely well versed in the colors. I have to tell you, when I was on the webinar, Dr. Pawn, I believe her name is, was incredibly easy to understand. But as they were going through the color systems, I was a little irritated because it wasn't, it didn't feel very secure to me. Just because you were one color one week, in 24 hours that could change, and that could change your complete ability to have kids on campus. And that was the part that worried me. I don't want to bring everybody back, even in a hybrid model, only next week to say, okay, we're back to remote. We could do that, we absolutely could do that. But for what makes the most sense to me right now is that we continue to watch where we are, because it takes 3 weeks for us to get out of purple. We have to be in red for 3 weeks. It at least gives us some time to say, okay, we're moving in the right direction. I did appreciate the 3-week marker, because if it is going that level for 3 weeks, you could feel a little bit more sense of calm. And for us as a school system, it would give us time to start getting ready. Okay, guys, we got out of purple. Everybody start getting your classrooms ready. So it does give us a little bit of a warning time, but there is no ripping off the Band-Aid. You all get to come back tomorrow. That doesn't happen. That was actually one of the questions that was asked today in the board chat, was how soon could we come back? And we said, look, if all goes well and we get off the watch list, or out of purple now instead of the watch list, that you could convene a special board meeting to be able to say, okay, we're ready to implement this. That's only a 24-hour agenda post. But for right now, we are in the purple. We are not in red. We have to be in red for 3 weeks before we can entertain some kind of a gradual return.
But that is, maybe I just want to clarify, that is different though than the guidance and the special populations.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure
that guidance with special populations doesn't care if we're on the watch list or not. It says that you could start bringing targeted groups back as long as those targeted groups are fewer, or 16 or fewer. And the 16 or fewer is a combination between students and adults. And they have to be the same contacts. So for instance, if I am a teacher and I have, I'm with 14 kids, I can't be with a different group of 14 the next day. I have to stay with that group of 14. Okay. But they changed the guidance since this was published so that it was a group of 16. It could be one adult, like I said earlier, one adult, 15 kids, 6 adults, 10 kids, as long as that number is 16. And our hybrid plan that we had proposed back in July talked about one teacher with 15 kids. One teacher with 15 kids on Monday, Tuesday, and that same teacher with a different group of 15 on Thursday, Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So that would not fly under the new guidance. Mm-hmm. And if we wanted to bring kids back, like a group of 15 every day, the teacher would only be able to have one group of 15.
And do you think that the cohort that they're thinking that's most impacted are necessarily the same children you were serving before distant learning, or is this a new group of kids that are most impacted?
I think this was specifically geared towards students who have endured a much more significant loss of learning. I think this had a lens on our severely handicapped and special ed population. We have students who cannot work in a Google setting. This was also done for rural school districts because it doesn't matter how much money you have. If internet doesn't come out to you, internet's not going to come out to you. And even if you try and get satellite internet, those of us, or I shouldn't say us, but those in our community who have internet satellite will tell you that it's very easy to eat up all the data you purchase very quickly and then have nothing left for the last 3 weeks of the month or the last 2 weeks of the month. So this was done so that schools, especially in rural, remote areas, could bring kids on campus to help address their immediate needs.
So just to clarify, it could be a student that can it be a student that's not necessarily special education or has an IEP? It could be a home setting that's not conducive and their gap is getting larger and larger because they can't read or math. That's what I'm saying. It might be a different group of kids than we knew back, last June.
And we're already doing our internet rooms to help address some of that.
Okay.
And then have conversations started throughout the district about the possibility of targeting some other groups
We're exploring that within the next couple of weeks here because, and it depends. If we do this with instructional aides, that's different. If we do this with teachers, that's different. So if we do this with teachers, we have to make sure that the teachers can still teach. But then we have to revisit the MOU that we have with the bargaining unit because we did not bargain for this. And what I mean bargain, I mean negotiate. We did negotiate for bringing some groups, specialized groups back. So that would need to go back to the negotiating table with FBDTA. We can bring kids back with our classified aides. And the reason for that is because our classified aides are not actively teaching. We can't bring kids back with a teacher if they're teaching on Google. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. If they're teaching distance learning, I can't say I'm going to stop you from teaching there to teach over here. So that's why we can bring students back with our aides. And we have in our memorandum of understanding with the classified about student supervision. And it's supervision, it's not teaching, it's not instruction.
And this can really just happen at the pace of the district. I mean, obviously. Yes. So it's different than the waiver because the waiver is K6 and it has to be approved by the county health officer in the state. And this can be done at the pace of the district.
Mm-hmm. And this is also for K-12. That's the other difference. The waiver process was only for kindergarten TK through 6th grade. We could not do anything for grades 7 through 12. We couldn't even bring in small groups for grades 7 through 12. We could do the internet rooms because that's not bringing them in for any kind of instruction. It's that was student supervision. So the waiver this new guidance negates our reason for having to file for a waiver.
Okay.
And actually, I'm going to take that back. Because the parent question that we had earlier in the evening at the meeting was, why didn't we apply for a waiver? A waiver would allow us to bring back every kid K-6 in some restricted fashion, but we could have every kid return. Not every day, we could do the AB days, but it would allow us to open the school. This does not allow us to open the school. This allows us to have small groups for targeted instruction.
And Becky, what kind of time frame would that be with those groups?
That's a discussion we're going to have with our teachers, because I think it would vary from group to group, what that would mean, what that would look like. If you have kiddos who are struggling to read and we bring them in to sit and read for 2 hours, that's not a really good strategy. That's just too long of a time. So it really would be dependent on the age and having the conversation with the family and the teachers to figure out what's appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
And I just wanted to note, Kathy, that we did receive an email from Beth Pine, and she did ask the question, will the board be discussing what the plan for cohorts will potentially look like when we do return to school?
So, Kathy, do you mind if I jump in on that? So right now, the memorandum of understanding that we have with our teachers is in last month's board packet, I believe, or in the July 30th board packet. No, last month's packet, sorry. And that really outlines what the cohorts are going to look like. Right now, we are, the plan that we have in place is our AB days, where the cohorts will be for teachers that half of their students will be A students, half their students will be B students. They'll see half of their kids on Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday we clean, Thursday and Friday is the other half of the kids. So our cohorts fall and align with what the county public health officer approved, which was one teacher, 15 kids, no more than 2 cohorts. So they're exposed to at most 30 children. And the public health officer actually made it a lot looser for high schools and middle schools if they were in departmentalized settings, so that they could have no more than 15 kids in a class period. So she provided a lot of flexibility on it. But our MOU is very specific. It is one teacher, 30 kids.
So that means, if I'm understanding it right, the middle school is set up self-contained. So then if we went back to hybrid, then those kids would get direct instruction from the person that they're assigned to now. Mm-hmm. Is that correct? But yes. Then that's different from the high school because they're not moving. So then let's say they have this virtual learning team. So does that mean that the virtual learning, they're going to go to that classroom, but still be logging in to their 3 classes from the teacher in another room?
Mm-hmm. So that's the way the MOU would read right now. Whether that's their first period, whether that's a virtual learning team remains to be seen. Mm-hmm. Whether that's their second period or third period, whether that rotates every 4 weeks. So all that remains to be seen. When we get to a spot and we get closer, we'll have to tease out those details and make sure that the high school has a firm plan.
Because I have to say, as a parent, and I, just from talking to other people, I mean, if my high schooler is going from logging in at home to logging in room 105, it's not much. I mean, they don't get to go have break. They don't get to go. I'm not sure if that's really what the push is to get back to school. So that's my concern, is that if they're going somewhere else to log in, because I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. The teacher can't teach on the board and try to teach the kids in the room if it's not the class that they're supposed to. Anyway, I don't know if I can describe it, but the more that this is unrolling, I'm realizing that going back to school in the hybrid model at the high school anyway, it doesn't seem like it's much different than them being at home, which doesn't get the interaction and the social piece and all those things that parents and families are asking for.
So as we get closer, we'll make sure that we have that discussion with the high school. The high school's been working really hard to make sure they're addressing the needs of the kids. I applaud them for developing the virtual learning teams and trying to make it so that there's one less point of contact for kids, and to try and make it so that the teachers can create a much more personalized setting in their virtual learning teams. So I think those details will get teased out. I don't think they've gotten as far as they had hoped. They did know that we were going to be in distance learning for a good chunk of time. And so I think it was kind of like, okay, let's get this under our belts. Let's get this rocking and rolling. And then when we're ready to bring kids back, we'll tease out those finer details. And I believe they will. I don't know what that will look like right now, to be quite honest with you. That's a high school discussion. And I don't believe at this point they've had a moment's piece to try and look at that. I think they've really been focused on providing the best instruction possible. But I have faith in our high school teachers that something wonderful will come out of it, and they'll do what's best for everyone. whatever that is. And we're not going to please everyone. I can tell you that.
Well, the high school is doing, I think I had a 504 meeting today with my son, and I got to talk to his teachers from next semester, this is so all new, but they really, it was amazing for them to describe the Google thing. And anyway, it was, it's pretty remarkable what they've learned and figured out in a very short amount of time. So I think they're doing great with this model. It's just going to be, I'm having a hard time envisioning what this really is going to mean, trying to do this in between thing, and how that's going to, part of me thinks that until we can just open school, it's not going to be, the kids think this is annoying and not being, fulfilling their well and things like that. I think that middle hybrid model may even be more of a challenge for them to be able to go to school and not be able to, you can't go to the quad, you can't go, you can't intermix, and I just think it's going to be even more of a challenge, but we'll see what the future brings.
Other questions? We're a lively group, kids. So I'm not sure what you want to do here. I'm not sure if you want to.
There's no action, so.
Right. It's on action, but I
don't think we have any action to take because there's nothing we can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you need to move to table it?
That's I guess that's what I was asking. Thank you, Wendy.
Okay.
I move we table this until our next regular meeting. Item 10.1.
Right. And just to, I'll second, and then I just have a clarifying question. So really, if everything went perfect, we wouldn't be able to open up anything until 3 weeks, but we still don't have the groundwork set for the district. But we could easily have our the test positivity rate go up. But we do have 2 special meetings coming as well. That we can, we've got opportunities to just put this on another agenda sooner than the next regular meeting.
Mm-hmm. So. And realize that the soonest we could go back is 3 weeks from tomorrow, if tomorrow we are in the red. Right? If we're still in the purple tomorrow, then it would be 3 weeks from Monday if we're in the red on Monday. So every day that we're not in the red, you just keep adding 3 weeks to it. And then I anticipate that the rules will change yet again.
Right.
And then we'll have to learn some new color scheme.
Because it was almost like 5, if you're still in the purple, you could almost get to the red in 5 weeks and open. And it's totally confusing.
And Diana, can you repeat the website you go to for the blueprint?
You could probably Google that. It was called the Blueprint for Safer Economy that was talked about. And then it also, I think it's under COVID-19 California. And then you look under county and type in the county. And that's supposed to give us, tell us what's open in the county. And it goes through like gyms, library, concerts, schools. So you can look at the color tier, which is the purple, red, orange, yellow.
Yeah, I can share the link with you if you like. I have it open.
Sure, that'd be great. Oh, you're muted, Kathy.
Mary, you made the motion, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then a second?
Diana seconded.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, Anna.
Okay. Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
President Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll see that again next month. Next thing is 10.2, unaudited actuals. I'll turn this over to Wendy.
Okay, I hope you had a good time with your reading over the weekend, all 56 pages of it. The main thing with the comparisons, there's all the information in there. I always like to look at the comparison of where we were when we put the budget together and where we are now. from the estimated actuals and explained that when we do the budget, the estimated actuals then are still based on what's budgeted. And that's why the biggest change is in the expenses. So because we always know pretty closely by the end of the year what our revenues are, but we don't always know exactly what's going to come in from expenses. So we generally leave some of those amounts in the budget at estimated actuals. So that's where the biggest change was from then until now. So there were a couple of areas that I wanted to share with you and with everyone else looking. Let's see, I don't want to go, and I'm going to try to present and we'll see how that goes. Present now. A window. Okay, that is not what I wanted. Okay, cancel. Try that again. My entire screen, and I will bring this up. Okay, so is that pretty visible to you guys?
No.
It's not visible.
Not seeing it.
Yeah, it's not popped up yet, Wendy.
Oh, that's right.
Again.
Is it there now?
Are you sharing the wrong screen?
I have no idea. What am I sharing? What are you seeing?
Just our grid.
Okay. Let's try this.
Do you want me to share my screen?
Nope, I think I found it. Share. Aha. Okay.
We got it.
All right. So these are some charts, historical to now charts that I wanted to show you some of the trends that we've seen in the past that are sort of repeating themselves now. And you can see here, this is our history of our general fund revenues, expenditures, and our fund balance from 2000, 2001 to the present. And when you look, you can see in the fund balance, this purple at the bottom here, that in 7-8, there and 8-9, there was an increase in the fund balance. And that's because you can see the revenues here starting to fall off. And that's where the big downturn was in 08. So we squirreled away money as much as we could to try to alleviate the impact of those revenue losses. But you can see the revenue and expenses kind of tied together all the way through. There was a little increase in the revenues there. That was when the LCFF revenues took a big jump, and that then they all caught up again. And then down here, even though those things were both going up, our fund balance kept dropping off a little. And that's because for most part, this turquoise line of expenses was usually a little bit higher than the orange line of the revenues. And you can see here in 1920, we have a little spike in our ending fund balance and a drop in our revenues and a sort of a leveling of, drop in our expenses and a leveling of the revenues. The drop in the expenses is due in large part to the fewer expenses we had from March, April, May, and June. We didn't have any sub costs. We went through fewer materials. We had a lot of services that didn't end up happening. So that's why you're seeing that sort of drop off in the expenditures. And if we look at the history of our fund balance by category, this is the total fund balance. And again, you can see this 8, 9, 9, 10 area was this spike because we really squirreled away because we were so concerned about what was going to happen moving forward in those next few years. And you can see it did come to fruition, but we managed to survive because we had been very careful. And then we have our unassigned balance that just all over the place. And this red line is the restricted. And again, that kind of went up and down with the fund balance because we had a lot of categoricals that we really were very careful about holding on to and being very judicious about how we spent them. And then this is purple line is the assigned designated amount. So those are the three amounts. And you can see here again, 1920, we're seeing quite a spike. And a lot of that, again, is because of the lower expenses that we had. And some of it was due to revenues. And one of the revenues that was really high was our supplemental concentration revenue. And that's because we went to CEP, the community eligibility provision. So that increased we worked the questionnaire about family income into the online student registration packet. So we had a lot more participation of families answering those questions because nobody had to come in and get a piece of paper, fill out the piece of paper, bring it in. So we really streamlined it, and it sent our unduplicated count up to about 80%. So we saw a real spike in our supplemental concentration income. So that's those two things contributed a lot to this number jumping up. So looking at our projections, they're starting to look a little more like back in 0809. You can see the projections for the next 3 years are all of these things kind of falling off again. Here's our fund balance is going to be drifting off. This was 1920. We had a little bit of a spike, and then we're looking at dropping off. The orange line here is our revenues, and the turquoise line is our expenses. So it's not going to be very long before they cross over again and we start seeing this decline in our fund balance. So that's one of the reasons, because of all the uncertainty, that we're really trying very hard to maintain some of the drops that we cuts that we made so that we can weather this. The other thing I want to show you about this next coming time is, if you look at, this is our schedule of apportionments, and this is a simplified version of what our deferrals are going to look like. So our state aid portion is this $9.5 million. And this is what we're scheduled to get from July through January. And that doesn't change. It's when we get into the spring that it changes. You can see this is in a regular year what we would have received each month. And this is what we're going to receive this year in those months. So in a regular year, we would have gotten all of our $9.5 million by June. This year, we're only going to receive $6.9 million. So that leaves us with a deficit, a deferral for into 21-22 of $2.5 million. So that's not small. That's something we really have to be able to manage our cash flow. And if you look at our undesignated unassigned fund balance, it's 2.7, which leaves us $176,000 cushion going into 21-22 to be able to shore up our cash flows. And if we can maintain that, we will not have to do any borrowing. We will be in fairly good shape. And again, it's one of the reasons that the closer we are able to maintain this level, the better off we're going to be. And not to mention that we don't know what the next years are going to look like. And I think any significant changes we make, we should probably wait until at least second interim to do them, just because we'll have a better idea of how long the downturn might be, what the state is planning to do about compensating for it if they can. I mean, now with the fires and everything else on top of the pandemic, the economic situation is going to be even a little more precarious, I think. So this is an important thing to look at, because it looks like we have a whole lot of money left over, but we have to be able to maintain that cash flow. And there is actually really, they have a schedule of when they're going to pay these deferrals, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to, because we've seen that in the past too, where they said, oh, well, we're going to give you some in the months following June. And it doesn't always happen because something else happens and they say, oh, well, we can't really now, so we have to push that off. And the likelihood is, again, as happened in the past, this is what we've seen before, is that those deferrals will continue. So we're going to have, several years of this happening where we're going to have these deferrals going on, and we're going to have to be able to maintain enough of a balance to carry them through. So those are some things I wanted to point out as far as the unaudited actuals. Was there anything else in there? What else did you have questions about? I don't know what you want to see or question or know.
So basically the state can just keep kicking the can down the road indefinitely, or is there some time frame where they have to finally pay?
No, they pretty much can keep kicking the can down the road.
Oh, okay.
And the likelihood is that is what will happen.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, the other thing that I want to just make publicly noted is that we are in the process of squirreling away. And let me explain what that means. If we were open right now, no pandemic, all the kids were back, there's lots of staffing that we would have to replace. We've brought our instructional aides down to the bare bones minimum because we don't have kids on campus, where we've had 5 aides in a classroom for some of our severely handicapped students. It's down to 2. We've taken the instructional aides at Redwood that have been helping with reading instruction and classroom instruction. We've taken that down a significant amount. So if we were to come back, let's say next August, we come back full time, we are rocking and rolling. This level of an unassigned amount would be significantly reduced, greatly reduced. We have our intervention teacher and our TOSAs at halftime each. Those would both come back to full time. We have lots of things right now that we haven't fully, that we've just held back on. So because in this distance learning model, it doesn't make sense. So once we go back to full time, there's lots of things that are going to spike up in costs, our sub costs, our coaches, our athletic bill. There's a lot of things in there. So for right now, while it may look good, I don't want anybody to have this impression, oh my gosh, look how much money we have. It's going to go away rather quickly when we hit the fall if we're back, because none of us expect a COLA. We fully expect that we are going to have some kind of reduction in our funding. And so this is, please know that this is tenuous. The situation that we are in is still tenuous. And we have a lot of staff and a lot of expenses that we've put on hold because we are in distance. That is not something that we intend to keep going in perpetuity for years and years and years.
And if we come back fully, chances are that means that the state is going to be back to better operations and they'll be in better shape too. So hopefully that will be an offset, and that'll be a time when the state can start repaying some of these amounts or stop deferring them anyway. The other piece of that is that we have to keep an eye on is we're being held harmless this year for our ADA. So our funding is going to truly be flat. The following year, we don't have a clue because right now our enrollment is down quite a bit. And so we're going to have to watch that very closely to see what happens in 21, 22, because if our numbers stay where they are now, we're going to take a big hit. So another thing, go ahead.
I wanted to call attention. You're being very kind about the enrollment. I have been ignoring the elephant in the room, which is the enrollment, because right now our enrollment is 100 students less than it was this time last year. If that 100 stays, everyone needs to understand that's over $1 million. That is significant.
So one bright spot to kind of finish up on, this community eligibility provision not only brought us a lot of supplemental concentration income, it generated a whole lot of revenue in nutrition services. And that combined with, again, some lower costs at the end of the year, even though we fed the whole world, and the greater reimbursement, the contribution to food services, including the donation from the Children's Fund, was less than $50,000 this year. So that was a lovely surprise when we got to closing the books. And hopefully we can sustain that. It's very hard to know how much of it was due to the additional revenue generated from the extra meals at the end of the year, or how much was generated just because of the community eligibility provision. But I have to think that I looked back at the early months of the year, and all of those were higher than the prior years because of the additional participation of the families. So that has turned out to be a good thing.
And hats off to Pilar and her team, because that really is a testament to the great job that they've been doing. And I know Pilar has been hustling since before March. But when this hit, her team was ready to go and started serving meals that very week that we went out. So hats off to them.
Well, and I just want to acknowledge that this is kind of a terrible situation to be in, because the distant learning model is not good for all students, but it's saving us money, which doesn't feel good. But then if we go back to school when it's safe, we're right back where if we all remember where we at before we were deficit spending, but we still had declining enrollment. It's just, we're going to go right back where we were, but I don't feel like, I don't want to say that we're staying in distant learning to save us money either, because it's not a good model for all students. And I don't think that's what we're saying, but it's a terrible area to be. Do we have areas that, if we can look forward, what funds we do have still deficit spending that we should be mindful of now, that we can, I don't know how we can be more proactive, but is there anything that you can think of?
Not really. The things that where we're deficit spending and have a large general fund contribution, we really don't have any control over. For instance, transportation. The transportation funding has been flat since 12-13. We have not received another nickel over what we received in 12-13 for transportation costs. So that's an area, especially rural districts. It's killing all of us, because costs are going up, and trying to work on a 12-13 budget for transportation costs is very difficult. So there's really not a whole lot to be done there. I think that department is as lean as it can be. The other places are special ed, and again, we have no control over that. We are required to do certain things, and those things involve costs, and there's no relief in sight from that either. And those costs continue to increase every year. So we're not anticipating that slowing down anytime soon.
So just my last comment. So I know CSBA, during the MIG, my first MIG class, they had a grassroots point person that our district or region could talk with. And I think everyone got an email, which I just remember that spurred that conversation. And that's what that point person is supposed to do, to help us work with the state or have that voice from our rural district for areas that a bigger community can't understand because they have public transportation. That, our square miles is probably not as grand as some other districts, but we'll have to discuss that further to try to help have them address that at the state level or something.
It's probably going to be a while before that rises to the top of anybody's list, I think.
But I was happy to get an email.
Yeah. Any other questions?
And Diana, we are part of the Small School Districts Association, and that group does advocate for small rural districts. And we're kind of in that we're not necessarily small, but we're not necessarily big.
Okay, any other questions for Wendy or the staff? And Anna, is there anything come in from the public?
No comment from the public.
Okay. I didn't really have any questions, but I expect more of a savings. I think on the PG, there's electricity and utilities was you can see the books is on one, but I don't know. I just thought we'd save more money on things like that, because there weren't any. I guess there's still people there, so the heater's still got to go on and stuff. But there was a lot of savings in material.
Well, what was happening with utilities was we were going to go over budget because the costs increased. So we did well to be as close to what we budgeted as we did. So I don't know. I mean, those costs should stay down a little bit with fewer people on campus, which again is not a good thing to not have kids on campus, but we will save a little bit in the costs on that.
Mm-hmm. And I think, Diana, you have a good point. As we just move forward, we know these things are going to go up if we, every time we're going to have to figure out how to squirrel some more away and make some tough choices, I think, because it doesn't look like it's going to get any easier, even though we always say that, but it just can't. I don't see how money can get better, especially now the state's on fire. So anyway, get ready for some coming attractions, as Becky Walker says.
And just recognize that our bargaining units are going to ask us to keep up with the cost of living. And I'm just, again, calling attention to the obvious. Our CSEA agreement expires next fall. I believe it's June. Their last installment on the 5-year agreement that we had goes into effect on July 1 of 2021, and that'll be the last one. And so they will be in a position where they will want to bargain salary again. We have kind of a hold with FBDTA right now for 2 years until a COLA is reinstated, but that's on the horizon as well.
Okay. So if there are no further questions or comments from the board or the public, I'll ask that we get a motion.
Make a motion, we approve the unaudited actuals.
Thank you, Jerry. And okay, thank you, Mary. Any discussion? Okay, Anna.
Okay. Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
President Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
And Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Okay, so we're moving on to the public hearing. We have a resolution presented in the board packet for consider acceptance of instructional materials fund assurance and adoption of resolution 20-7, certification of provision of standards aligned instruction. And I guess the actual resolution is short, so when we get to the motion, we could read it. But if there aren't any objections, I'll open the public hearing at 8:17. And do we have any comments from the public?
There are no comments from the public.
Okay. So this is a list of the textbooks in the district, who the author is, and when they were it's adoption, right? Not when they were, not the edition of the book, I believe. Is that correct, Becky? Or Anna, yes. Okay. Yeah, so that's the year they were adopted, not necessarily publication date. And if there's no comment, okay, I'll close the public hearing at 8:18. And then we approve the resolution. Okay.
So do I want to make a motion to approve the resolution 20-17, sufficiency of instructional materials?
Okay. And a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Oh, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah.
Scott.
Either way.
And Diana, do you want to read the opening?
Sure.
Okay.
Whereas the governing board of the Fort Bragg Unified School District, in order to comply with the requirements of Education Code Section 60119, held a public hearing on September 10th, 2020 at 6 p.m., which is on or before the 8th week of school and which did not take place during or immediately following school hours. And whereas the governing board provided at least 10 days notice of the public hearing, posted in at least 3 public places within the district that stated the time, place, and purpose of the hearing, And whereas the governing board encouraged participation by parents, teachers, members of the community, and bargaining unit leaders in the public hearing. And whereas information provided at the public hearing and to the governing board at the public hearing detailed the extent to which textbooks and instructional materials were provided to all students, including English learners in the district. And whereas the definition of sufficient textbooks or instructional materials means that each pupil has a textbook or instructional materials or both to use in class and to take home. And whereas sufficient textbooks and instructional materials were provided to each student, including English learners that are aligned to the academic content standards and consistent with the cycles and contents of the curriculum frameworks in the following subjects noted for each site, and then high schools at the end, whereas sufficient textbooks or instructional materials were provided for each pupil enrolled in foreign language or health. And then they go into the laboratory science equipment was available for science laboratory classes offered in grade 9 through 12, including biology, chemistry, physics, and other. Now, therefore, be it resolved for the 2020-21 school year, the Fort Bragg Unified School District has provided each pupil with sufficient textbooks and instructional materials aligned to the academic content standards and consistent with the cycles and content of the curriculum frameworks passed and adopted by the governing board of the Fort Bragg Unified School District on the 10th day of September by the following vote.
Okay. Let me make sure I'm muted.
No public
Nope, I'm
comments
good.
still.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead. Trustee Matson,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
and President Babcock.
Yes. And you would like me to stop by in the morning to sign that?
Yes, please.
And there's also the certification of provision of standard aligned instructional materials. So is that a second? That's all in one. That's right below it.
Oh, yep. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all part of the same.
Okay.
So that's in the motion as well.
Okay. All right. I will be by in the morning. Okay. 10.4 is the salary for PhD advancement or to include columns for PhDs. Becky, do you want to just give the background?
So what happened was when we negotiated our contract a couple of years ago with the teachers, we had included the master's stipend and the PhD stipend into the salary schedule as columns. And the reason for that is so that it is STRSable. And what I mean by STRSable, it means that when a teacher retires, that because it's part of the salary, then it becomes part of their total annual compensation. And then that stipend then has all the benefits of having the raises that are bestowed onto the entire schedule. When we made the schedule years ago, we didn't have anyone with a PhD. So we had just made the salary schedule with a BA and credential, and then the plus column was if you had a master's. Well, now we have someone with a PhD, and we classify that with a JD, a Juris Doctorate. And so we need a plus column to compensate for the PhD stipend. Does that make sense? So we didn't do it before, so we had to go back, and Wendy did it. Thank you, Wendy, and make sure that it was appropriately placed the year that we had done it, and that the raises were applied. And Wendy, what am I missing?
Nothing. They're really these are the same schedules that you have approved. It was just the addition of the column for the doctorate, and the county requires that it be approved before we can actually apply it. Even though it was originally intended, we just didn't present it that way with those columns.
So the language in the contract has been approved for several years. We just didn't present a salary schedule to be approved to the board. So that's what this is. It's making sure that the printed word and the schedule coincide.
It's really just, dotting an I and crossing a T, just to make sure that we have an approval for the addition of the columns.
But they're applied to all the certificated salary schedules now.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions or any questions? And how about anything from the public, Anna?
There's no public comment.
Okay. All right. If there's no comment, I'll ask for a motion.
I move to approve the salary schedule.
Well, second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Okay, Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
President Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
and Trustee Makala.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we're moving on to 10.4. I don't know what that was. 10.5. Memorandum of Understanding between the California School Employees Association and Fort Bragg Unified School District.
So Wendy and I negotiated with CSEA, the president and their regional rep, Nicole McLean and Danette Sawyer. And this is the agreement that we've come to for the classified employees.
Any questions or clarifying?
It's pretty straightforward. It's very easy to read, and they're willing to. This is to address them working on site. Is that right?
Yes, and with children.
Right. And then the only thing that I had asked was about the Keenan working remotely. That was the only thing that I didn't know if that was available or if that really, I didn't realize if there was remote working training through Keenan. So that was
Actually, I think it just got released. I don't think it was available at the time. But when we were doing this, it was in process. So I believe it's available now. We just have to check in. Is that your understanding, Wendy, Anna?
Yeah.
I checked. It is there already.
Yes. And anybody who works for the district can log in the same way they did, and the suggestions will pop up and they can do it. Anybody can do it at their leisure.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I'm going to assume nothing from the public either.
There is no comment from the public.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I'll call for a motion.
I'll move that we approve item 10.5 memorandum of understanding between the CSEA and FBUSD.
I will second.
Okay. Any discussion? All right.
Okay. Trustee Makala,
Yes.
President Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli.
Yes.
Okay, 10.6 is a contract for services between Fort Bragg Unified School District and Quattrochi. Is that Quack?
Quattrochi Quack.
Oh, look, I did pretty well. Associates. So this is, we talked about the bids last month, correct? And then this is coming forward for the contract.
Right. And this is a template that has been run through and approved by and scoured by school services. So school college legal service. So this is what they use because they know that we're all going to run it through them anyway. So this has been vetted.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about the contract?
It's very thorough. Covers everything, and it's almost like statutory fees where it's baseline. There was one condition. It was kind of like a portion of money that went to a fund or something. So what? I don't remember. I can't find it now. Probably not important. It's probably mandated, but I'd never seen that before.
Is it a sinking fund?
It had a proper name to it, a name title. Anyway, I can ask you another time. But I just was surprised that the money, I'm not sure where that money is coming from or how it's, how that all came about, because this is supposed to be for improvements in the services. And it seems like it was money that was taken out of the top of it, a portion. Leroy Green School Facility Act of 1998. 3% per year of the overall dollar amount of funds allocated to the district. It's on page 22F. Disabled Veterans Participation Goals. But obviously it's been vetted, probably as a non-issue, but I was just surprised that they take a portion.
So apparently there's a requirement that a certain percentage of costs of the contracts, state location board, construction modernization, whether prior to and condition precedent final payment, provide appropriate documentation identifying the amount paid to disabled veteran business enterprises in conjunction with the contract. So just as with certain entities require the participation of certain types of businesses, the Leroy Green Act has been around a long time. And
so you think maybe it's a disclosure?
I'm familiar with it, but I think it's a statutory thing. But I will double check.
Disclosure?
Yeah, I mean, it's in accordance with Ed Code, so it's something that's required to be
mandated.
Basically, 3% of the money that we spend needs to go to disabled veterans, qualified entities, and contractors or architects or.
Right.
So my question to you, Wendy, and Barry, who's not here, I know on the high school program, we went way over our budget, which shouldn't be a problem because we'll just quit working when we get to the end of our money, if that's the case. But there was a company that we hired that was supposed to be keeping tabs on all our costs and so forth. And it was a perfect storm of Don Armstrong and, our FMOT that left before Barry, I can't think of his name, John Griffiths left. And then we were kind of twisting in the wind with the new superintendent and we didn't have somebody really overseeing costs and what things really needed to be done. So is that all going to fall on you and Barry?
Probably.
Okay.
But I also think we encountered other situations with that because we started and stopped with the first contractor. So I think there were a lot of things there that compounded that issue. But we're going to keep pretty close tabs on this.
And this will move a little bit slower, I think, with different chunks of bond money coming in. So that's one of my concerns. And it was the same architect, so we should be pretty comfortable with Mark and his company, I would think.
Yeah, and they're aware of our dollar limitations and that we really can't go much over. I mean, we have a little bit of capital improvement money of our own, but it's not huge. And they're also going to help us find ways to leverage that with other state bond monies. We'll get in line once we have some kind of a more concrete plan of what we want to do. We'll get in line for some of the facility money that's at the state and be able to leverage that because we will have some matching money, then be able to take advantage of it.
Okay, thanks.
So a couple questions I have is one, I thought I remember seeing some sort of RFQ going out. Was there more, how many firms responded? How did we choose them? I know we worked with them before. And then is there any sort of actual budget number?
There's not a budget number because we don't have enough of an idea of what the plan is. So once we get down to more closely looking at the actual projects that we're going to do, then we'll get an actual budget. There was no way to do that because we don't know what we're doing yet. So that was part of the problem there. The RFQs, so that was last month's thing where we sent them out to 5 different architectural firms. We got responses from 2. And we, I don't know if you remember last month, we sort of selected QKA partially because of their familiarity. The costs were pretty close. The QKA was a tad higher, but they are so familiar with our district that we felt that them not having to come up to speed with everything that had been done in the past would save us some time there.
Okay. Thanks.
And they've done an awful lot of work up on the coast, so they're aware of the limitations of getting things here, of procuring materials, contractors, and knowing that there's going to be additional cost over having to do a project, say, in Santa Rosa. They're completely aware of that and understand it, so they're going to take that into consideration when they're looking at things.
Okay. Anything from the public?
No comment from the public.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Wendy or staff?
So what would the next step be? That this would finalize the contract for services, and then how do you decide who's going to the needs assessment? I mean, what's the next? Are we pretty far away from someone coming and saying, look at this, these are our priorities? And
well, that's kind of the next step, is to come up with a list. We've talked to them a little bit about some of the areas of concern we have, and we'll develop more detailed, well, not really detailed, but a more concrete vision of what projects we might want to undertake once we have an idea of what costs we're looking at and how far we can stretch this, and then prioritize it. And I'll end up going back on my mandatory, necessary, desirable, I'm sure, because that's where it's going to come down to as far as having enough money to do everything. So we'll have to, okay. There are things we will absolutely have to do, and there are things that we'd like to do, and then there are things that would be really nice if we could. So we'll work on prioritizing things that way, but it's going to be a process. We'll develop our own internal priorities and projects, and then we'll bring in the community committee and get feedback from them, since they're helping pay for this, and hopefully be able to, but we're still looking at a long time before anything happens. It's going to be a process.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract for services between Fort Bragg Unified and QKA.
I'll move to second the motion.
Any discussion? I guess I was off. Okay, Anna.
Okay. President Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Makela?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
And Trustee Matson?
Yes.
Okay, so we're moving on to 10.7, Board Policy and Administrative Regulations Update. We had the pleasure of going through these bit by bit last meeting. There weren't too many conflicts or discussion items.
They're mostly mandatory law changes, right. All 85 pages of them.
Mm-hmm. And so if nobody has any questions or concerns at this point, I think we're ready to move forward with them.
I'll move that we approve item 10.7, Board Policies and Administrative Regulation Updates.
I will second.
Okay, and I didn't ask Anna, but I'm going to assume public really isn't interested in this. But
there is absolutely no public comment.
All right, so any discussion? Okay.
All right. Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Matson?
Yes.
Trustee Makela?
Yes.
President Babcock?
Yes.
And Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
So I just want to take a moment to thank Anna for the hours that she spends linking all these together and highlighting and things like that. She shared with us that we have a new service coming, and luckily that will take some time off of her plate. But just so the board knows, it may look a little different next time. Different coding, but the same kind of information that she's been doing by hand will come to us that way. So again, thank you, Anna, for making our job so much easier. And we really appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to move on to 11. It's information and discussion. We saw the calendars for the 21-22 academic school year last month. They're here again. Did you, Becky, did you hear from anybody or?
So I did have a conversation with FBDTA, Sarah McGee and Gary Lewis. Sarah is the president and Gary is the lead negotiator, and talked about snow days. We had talked about it in negotiations, and they both agree that it's a good idea for us to have a snow day. As long as we have a snow day built into our calendar, it gives us a little bit more favor with the state if we are applying for a waiver. So right now, the two calendars that you have in front of you, just for discussion, has snow days in different spots. The difference in the two calendars is really insignificant. But what people need to understand with the snow day is that if we have a PSPS event, and let me just give you a for instance, Willits has been closed. Willits has not gone to school this week because of the fires. And it's the same with Laytonville. So I don't know if they have snow days built in. Will they have to make up these days? I don't know. I'm assuming they will apply for the waiver. I don't want us, Fort Bragg Unified, to be in a position where we are going to potentially lose money because we don't have that built into our calendar. So both of these have one built-in snow day. The good news about a snow day is that if we don't need to use it, it becomes a day off. So you will have to make, I'm sorry, go ahead, Diana.
Did the union have a preference on one of these two, or was it just the general discussion?
It was just a general discussion of it. And in fact, I believe, if memory serves correct, when we were in negotiations, and Wendy helped me with this, I think they were the one who suggested that the snow day not be attached to a break so that it doesn't get scheduled as a break. Right?
Yeah.
I think that was their idea, actually. So out of both of these proposals, my preference would be to keep the snow day not attached to spring break. However, if we don't need the snow day, wouldn't it be lovely to have it attached to spring break? I get it, but my concern is with what our region has experienced over the last couple of years. And if anybody has seen the apocalyptic sky for the last 2 days, I have to be honest with you, I don't see how we would be able to hold school if we were full-time tomorrow. The air quality is not going to be good. Distance, we can do it though. So I think it's very prudent of us to do it. And then it's just up to you on where you want it. You will have to make a decision next month because by contract, this has to be prepared and voted upon by November 1.
So what day was taken? You've added this and we're supposed to have 180 days. So what day did we have removed or another day off? Or how does that work?
So in the past calendars, it's always a placement of where all the holidays show up. Where does Veterans Day show up? Where does the October break show up? And then we put those extra days. We had placed an extra day with the winter break in December or with spring break. And so we removed those extra days. The other thing is we had October break for 3 days and we've really kept it to 2.
Got it.
By any chance, has anything come in from the public, Anna, for the calendar?
No comment.
Okay.
There's nothing really controversial with both of these.
No.
And if people ask, well, how did you determine where spring break is and how did you determine where the February break is? Those are predetermined by the contract. So you pick your last day of school, you count 8 Mondays back, there's spring break. The February break has to have President's Day within it. So that's predetermined. Our winter break in December has to have the holiday in it, and New Year's Day. So that's how that's determined. October break, the 2 days, it has to be within 8 weeks of the start of school. So it's kind of all a little puzzle now, but a very, very simple one.
Okay, and just to reiterate, the suggestion is to not have it attached to spring break, so people don't plan to fly back from some wonderful tropical place on Monday when we really couldn't need school. I just want to make sure that's the idea. A 3-day weekend, people aren't planning big trips and could, and then just take them if it happens to be a real holiday. So just to clarify that. Okay, and so if anybody in the public has real questions or concerns one way or the other on these two calendars, please get them to Becky or one of us before the next meeting, because it is coming up for action on the October agenda. Okay, anything else on that item? Okay. All right. So the 11.2, the learning continuity and attendance plan, the new LCAP, so to speak.
Yeah.
We heard a little bit about it from Roger, but let's hear about FBUSD.
So you will get this in a public hearing on September 22nd. You'll get our full plan. And then, and I'm looking at the calendar right now, and I believe it is the 22nd, which is a Tuesday. So you will receive our full plan on Tuesday, September 22nd. We will have a public hearing, and the public will be able to ask questions at that point. Then the following Tuesday on September 29th, we will ask you to approve it, and then it goes to the county. Our learning continuity and attendance plan is really how we are using our CARES Act money, our learning loss mitigation funds, and how we are dealing with the COVID pandemic while our kids are at distance learning. So it is multifaceted. It has many, many sections in it. Well, I should say many, many. I think there's 11 sections total. The parent engagement piece I've been working on. So I've attended the Parents Club meetings, the site council meetings. We have a DLAC meeting next Friday. We've had the board chats, 2 board chats now. We continue to have this on the agenda so that public can provide comment. What I would say to any parent, anybody watching, if you would like to provide input and feedback about our learning continuity and attendance plan, you're welcome to call me, email me, schedule an appointment with me. I'm happy to discuss any parts of these plans with you. On the 22nd, when we publish the plan, it will be after our DLAC meeting so that you can see all the components of our community that we have had discussions with. The difficulty with this plan, just so everybody knows, is that this plan has to be approved by September 30th. Mm-hmm. We were given the template in August, and then we were asked to have a plan for all the money by September 30th and have it spent by December 30th. And we were notified about this in late July while we were trying to get ready to open school. So the timeline for this, to the layman, it may not sound very intense, but to those of us in the school system, we all kind of scratched our head and said, what do you want us to do? So I've been working on the plan, and it's interesting. I have big chunks of my calendar blocked out, and Anna can verify it. It says learning continuity and attendance plan. And I walk into work every morning and I think, oh, I'm gonna get so much done today. So it's been fun trying to get all of this done, but it's a large narrative is what it is. So we are talking about things about like our social emotional health of our students and how we've dealt with that. Some of the things that we've done, just to give you a preview, is we've purchased Second Step, the newer kits for Redwood. We reinstated the counselor at Dana Gray. We purchased or contracted for an additional 40 hours a week with our NPA for student counseling. And let's see, what else did we do? There's a fourth thing. So those are the big items for student mental health. We've used our money also for IT tools. So we've purchased the smart TVs for our classrooms, document cameras, lapel mics, webcams. So those are some of the bigger things. The iReady you saw on the warrants this month, that was also purchased for the return to distance learning. We had to renew our licenses for our everyday math program because our online resources had expired. And in previous years, we may not have done that, but we specifically did that this time. We had to purchase the online resources for our new adoptions at a higher level than we would have normally done it. So those are the things that we have used our money towards so that we can be prepared for this distance learning year. That'll be outlined in the plan, and you'll see how all of that is delineated. And then we have our real LCAP. The real LCAP is due and approved by December 30th.
Oh, no. So how do parents, I mean, we didn't really talk about this under the reopening. I mean, some are really struggling with the distant learning. So, I mean, do you need their input to know what's missing, or do you feel like you have a good flavor of like working families that are trying to, they're essential workers and I don't even know how they're doing it, what the needs are and if there's some other, input you need to provide ideas. I don't know where we're at on spending the funds.
I think what's really difficult is there are no fabulous solutions.
Right.
And when parents have said, we need childcare, we have our internet rooms. That's about the closest thing that we can provide. And what many families have said is that that's a difficult environment. Our staff is doing a fabulous job, but kids are 6 feet apart. They have to be masked the entire time. They're logging in and out of their classroom. Today, the kids couldn't even go outside because we were concerned about the air quality. Tomorrow, we had to close the internet rooms because the air quality is so bad. There's no ideal situation. If we open up classrooms for childcare and we have our staff take care of that, again, they're 6 feet apart. They're fully masked. They're not interacting or exchanging. It's not an ideal situation. I think what most of our families want is they want to be able to have their kids interact with other kids. And the internet rooms are a wonderful little option because there is interaction, and we love watching the little ducklings go by my window every day, and we watch them going out into the field. And I have to tell you, the first day they did it, it was all I could do not to have tears drop from my eyes because we just so desperately want to see our kids back. The hard part is there is no ideal solution. So what do? We do the best that we can with what we have. We are looking at the need for more internet rooms if the need arises. So.
And then what's the attendance part? What are you tracking? The level of that they're sitting at their desk at home, or that they're engaged, or what is the attendance?
You see Wendy laughing and she's muted because attendance has been so. It's been a very unique conversation. So we took the template from California Department of Education and we put it straight into Aries. And the hard part was Aries, and for those who don't know, Aries is our student information software. So we put it right into Aries, the coding that CDE gave us. Well, Aries then had a webinar with similar coding, but different words. So then we decided to put the CDE code, the CDE words absolutely into Aries, because we already know that the CDE gave us this template and said, this is what our auditors are going to ask you. So now we have the discussion of what does attendance mean? Attendance means contact. It doesn't mean grade book. And so it's been very difficult for many of our teachers to wrap their brains around, because part of the CDE coding, there was one code which kind of threw a wrench in the works, and that one code was code 4, which was submitted work, but there was no contact. So kids submitted work, but there wasn't a conversation on the phone, an email, a text, or something. So we are following the CDE guidelines for attendance to the letter of the law. Teachers are keeping attendance daily. They can't go back and change it. It's a matter of, did you have contact with the student or the parent? That's what it's about. It's about contact. Their grades are about their academic progress. And that's what I keep telling people. Attendance is about contact. And I had a teacher say, well, what if a kid logs in every day? I see him every day, but he or she doesn't do any work. I said, well, that's a reality of in-person school. They could come every day and not do a lick of work. Attendance is about contact. Grade book is about academic progress. So we're laughing because we've had these discussions so much with every single site, because that code 4 just kind of threw a kicker in there and made people rethink attendance a little bit differently. So we are following the CDE template for the guidelines that they've required. We're also following the template for the teacher log of their documentation of synchronous and asynchronous work. What's difficult in this distance learning environment, that there is an incredible amount of documentation. And what folks don't completely conceptualize or digest is that when our auditors come, they're going to say, I want to see this document on this day for this kid or for this teacher. And we are going to have to produce that. And it's funny because most folks don't believe that that really happens until you are in the front office when the auditors come. And Anna's nodding her head because Anna and I were both at the high school together when I was a principal and she was the athletic secretary. And we watched the auditors come in and ask for an absence slip on a certain day for a certain kid, and it had to be produced. And wonderful Patty Alcala just zip, zip, zip. That woman is so organized and so together. She had every little piece of paper for every single day for every single kid, and she could produce it. But it happens. So we know that these documents are going to be asked. And because we have such great luck in Fort Bragg Unified, sarcasm noted, we will get audited and someone will ask for it. So the good news is that our teachers are doing a great job. I know they're not super happy with it. I wouldn't be super happy with it, but they're doing a great job about keeping the paperwork and making sure that we're all in compliance. So you asked a very simple question, Diana. We giggled in the background because this has been something that's been, that we've had to explain all week. And I feel badly for our staff because it is not only on top of trying to do distance learning, now we're throwing a whole bunch of paperwork to them and documentation to them and say, here, add this to the one more thing pile, as Mr. Kale fondly addresses it as. So
okay.
I gave you way too much, but
good stuff.
Okay. Anything in from the public?
No public comments.
Thank you. Any other questions or concerns? We will be visiting this again on the 22nd.
And it'll be available for the public to view on the 21st, 24 hours before the meeting.
Okay. Because that's a public hearing.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then you mentioned there was a DLAC meeting. I don't see that on the calendar. It's next Friday. Is that what you meant?
Yes. Let me check my calendar. The DLAC meeting is the 18th from 2 to 3 p.m.
Okay.
So I'd like to attend that if I could get an invite. I've been going to those, so.
I believe Tina Krenov is the person that you need to email to get the invite. She's the one that's hosting the meeting.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
And then for the site meetings, we'll talk about this in a minute, but the site ELAC, just email the principal.
Either the principal or one of the secretaries. They have to host a sort of separate calendar meeting rather than the one that's on the public calendar to make it secure. So yes, contact the site office.
Okay. All right, 11.3 is the bond insurance and rate. So
it's the board insurance. So you said bond. That's okay. So let me explain. I brought this up, and let me explain why I brought it up. Wendy had attended the Stable meeting a month ago, 2 months ago.
It's been going on for months. Yes.
Okay. Well, it came to my attention because I didn't realize it, that as board members, you all have to accept the medical insurance or you all have to not accept it. So if you have people on the board who say, well, I don't need the medical insurance, I don't want it, then none of you can take it. Okay. If one person's digging in their heels. So the reason I am bringing this up, because if it's an all or nothing gig and you have to do it, I didn't understand why the board was paying a rate that wasn't at the full-time employee rate. Now, at one time, way back when, and I want to say before you were a board member, Wendy, there was a time when there was no contribution to insurance. That even as employees, we had no contribution for insurance. It was fully paid by the district. And that was quite a while ago. And at that point, I believe the board members had received the insurance with no contribution. Then, as insurance rates climbed, the district then had a cap on the contribution and the employees started paying it. And then that's when it shifted over. But I brought this up because my concern was, as board members, you receive no compensation for your service as a board member. And my concern was that if the rule is that it's got to be an all or nothing gig, should you then be paying at the full-time rate? Now, I realize that it looks funky for you to vote for you to lower your rates. That's why I am bringing it up. I did not discuss this with you. I brought it up because I personally believe that if you are going to provide this service, and we have a good 2 meetings a month on average, I just didn't feel it was right that if it was a forced gig that you pay higher than a full-time employee rate. That's where that comes from.
So, and one of the reasons this is coming up now as a clarification about who has to participate is we all of a sudden realized sometime last year that different districts were not necessarily following this protocol, that boards had to participate all or nothing, just as employees all have to participate if they are at a certain level. Mm-hmm. So each year at open enrollment, the board can decide that we are not going to take it the next year, or we are going to take it. So you can change that decision each year. The question of how much you're going to contribute is kind of a separate question, but it was also important to bring this up so that everybody realizes that right now for this year, this is what the board is doing. The entire board is participating. So you can change that during open enrollment, but that's the only time you can change that unless you have a member who reaches 65 and goes on Medicare, then they can pull out. So right now, the rate that board members pay is that of a 75% employee. So you get, it's basically the same as an employee who works enough hours that they can take it but don't have to at halftime or less than halftime. So that's the rate. And we have 3 different tiers of participation. Well, there's 75% and there's 100%. And board members are at the 75% level right now. So that is something that the board can decide to change.
And it's on discussion. So it's clearly not an action, but it's a discussion if you want to move it to action, or it can die here, but it is up to you.
So to clarify, in June of this year, we could, that's the time to say we're all in or we're all out. And yes. Even if someone turns 65, that person is kind of a wash. They don't really get a vote. They don't, the one person that turns 65 and is on Medicare doesn't make us all out. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's the one caveat, even for employees. If you turn 65 and elect to go on Medicare, then you can opt out. But that is the only time during the year that a person can opt out.
And what happened? I know that the person coming, I would assume that if in an electoral year, similar to this one, if somebody was coming in or going out, that's considered a life event, and that doesn't, I mean, how would that affect the all in or all out? So we're all in.
That person, that person would have to participate.
Okay.
for that year, and then the board could again take it up the following June to determine if they want to. But they can come in and participate because that is a qualifying event.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to wait for open enrollment to participate.
And then Becky, you're saying that because they are forced to, that you wanted to consider dropping the part we pay, or this person would pay, or however you want to put it.
To me, it just makes sense that as board members, I know how much you're in communication with me, how much we work each month. It doesn't make sense to me that you don't have the advantage of having the full-time rate. That's all. And I didn't realize it. I have to be honest with you. I thought you were all paying the full-time rate since I became superintendent back in 2015, 16. So I really thought you were all paying the full-time rate and just not paying attention, to be quite honest with you, because I don't see the checks come in. I don't see your benefits and what you get. And so I just discovered that within the last couple of months, which is why I'm bringing it up. Now, I'm happy to check with other districts and see what they do. My understanding is that the majority of districts also participate in the full-time rate.
Mm-hmm. And I think there are still some districts that pay their boards per meeting. I mean, still happening, which is kind of crazy because that usually got cut a long time ago. But I mean, bigger districts, I mean, we all do we have a lot of uncounted hours. I don't even want to calculate how many hours that I'm probably wasting just researching. But
well, the board packet is 392 pages this month. Pardon?
I said this is a light month, really.
Yeah, I know.
Unaudited actuals are in there, but it was a pretty light agenda, really.
So I'd like to move this to action for a number of reasons. One is I think it's worthy of discussion. Two is I'd like to see if anyone in the public or who has any opinions on this. Obviously, budgets are tight. Everyone's watching every dime. So politically, it's probably not the best thing. But at the same time, I don't know what other school districts do, but I'll tell you that city council, they get paid every month, and we don't do nearly as much work. Don't get me wrong, but they also get full benefits and pay nothing. And city benefits are better, in my opinion, than district benefits. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to see this die in this discussion, and I would just like to see it go to some sort of action. That's my feeling.
I'm with Scott.
And again, I just want to make it perfectly clear that this came from me.
And Becky, I think we appreciate that, because I don't think any of us would ever bring it up. We may think it, and some of us, it may be really helpful, the rest may not care, but I think it's worthy of a few minutes of discussion at a future meeting.
So when we go to agenda setting for the regular board meeting for October, Kathy will talk about that, getting that to action.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on that item? Okay, so we have advanced planning and suggestions for board meetings, and I think I let it slip by, but Becky, you had asked us about who was interested in tomorrow afternoon's meeting. Did you get more than 2 responses?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to decide which 2 are going and then get on that email or Google Meet.
So I'm going to jump in and say I had said that I would be willing to go, but I can see how I don't have any kids. I have grandkids, but I don't have kids in the district. I can see where all of you might be wanting to really be there. So I'm fine.
Did everyone say they wanted to go, Becky?
No, it was it was Diana, Kathy, and Mary. There was 3.
Okay.
And then Jerry and Scott, I didn't hear from you if you wanted to attend tomorrow's parent meeting.
I was going to say you could do your number. Sorry.
I don't have time tomorrow, but
Yes,
I'd love to. I'd love to hear about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then Diana and Kathy, you're up. Anna, if you could send Diana and Kathy, and thank you, Mary, for
And I'm fine with recusing myself. I really want to go as a parent, not as a board member, because
And I think you should.
my counseling background comes from that. But Mary, I'm feeling a little. Either way, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. If you really
No, I feel like it's best if you go.
Okay.
That makes
All right.
sense to me.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, so Anna will get both of you the link. And just for the public, anybody who's still watching at 9:09 p.m., we have a parent meeting tomorrow at 3:30. Please email Anna Russell, russell@fbusd.us, and she can get you the parent link so that you can attend that meeting with us. We're having a discussion about social media and encouraging our kiddos to post responsibly.
Okay. So each year I try to make sure that we have one board member at events. So we don't need anybody at progress reports. And these are hard for some families because they're in the middle of the day. But September 15th, there's two ELAC meetings. Mary, you're going to go to the DLAC meeting?
Yeah, and I'll do the middle school ELAC. That's fine.
Okay. So Mary Macala. On the 15th, what day of the week is that? I can probably do that one.
And under housekeeping, President Babcock, Dana Gray had their back to school night last night. And I have to tell you, it from all reports, it was lovely and wonderful. And I so desperately wanted to jump into a classroom. I was afraid that I was going to derail the teacher, like, hey! So I didn't. Mr. Kale and I were talking on the phone what was happening, and I don't think I publicly acknowledged the great work that Dana Gray did last night. So
were you able to view it from as a parent perspective, or no? It was only through the Google Classroom.
No. They opened up a link for parents to go into their teacher's classroom.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
But I mean, for you as an administrator, were you
Mr.
able
Kale sent me all the links, and he said, which classroom do you want to go into? And we talked about it. It's one of those things you belabored. I'm on the phone. I'm like, I don't want to derail anyone. I don't want anyone, I didn't want anyone to think that I was like trying to catch them. And on back to school night, I usually just walk in every room and wave and see the parents. And so I was just concerned that popping into a Google meeting wasn't going to be as inconspicuous as just walking into a room and waving. Right. So I decided not to go, but I just want to acknowledge that Dana Gray did a really fine job last night.
Great. I'm glad that turned out. So Diana, on the 15th, you're going to Three Rivers.
Yes.
So unless nobody else can jump on the Fort Bragg High School ELAC, I will go to that one. Oh, wait, scratch that. I have to take Jacob to the doctor in Ukiah. So is there anybody available for that?
At the high school, I might be able to.
Okay.
What did you say, the day of the week?
It's the same day as the
same day.
Okay.
Tuesday. Sure.
All right. And then on the 17th, which is a Thursday, there's a Dana Gray ELAC. That one I can do. Okay. And then also, Diana and I are both on Fort Bragg High School Site Council. That's on the 22nd. That's not on here, but I know Diana and I both are on that Google Meet.
The 17th, I think, isn't it? September 17th.
Yeah, the site council for the high school is not the 22nd.
I put it on there on the 22nd.
Hold on, let me look.
I better get my calendar straight.
The high school site council meeting is Thursday, September 17th.
Okay.
At 3:30.
And then this one's at 5:30. Okay. All right. Got it. And then we have two special board meetings that we will all be joining. And then October 6th, who is Dana Gray? Okay, Jerry. So, okay. If, I don't know who the president is over there, but I'm sure Mr. Kale can get you hooked up with your Google Meet. And then we're already to October break. Craziness. And then, of course, we have our board meeting and our board chat on October 15th. So I really want to say, I know it's late, but I really have these virtual formats for the Google Meet or for the board chat has been even though it really becomes a conversation for Becky, but it's been nice to have all these parents and families there. So, we are getting things besides the opening of school. So that's good too. And I really think you got some good pieces to have conversations or to push down for conversations at the site. So parents that are involved, keep being involved, and we appreciate the engagement. So unless any other suggestions, yes, Dana.
Just one quick. So this morning it was mentioned that I think you called it an administrative council that you'd be having. So, I mean, we're policymakers and we just get to watch everyone kind of struggling, which is kind of frustrating. But if there's something like there was the distant learning, which is probably, it's kind of moot and it was kind of fluffy language. It's not really appropriate. But if you find at that council that there's a policy that we don't have, I don't know, I mean, that's part of our job. So I don't know if there's any, through that meeting, if there's something that the distant learning, if you had a policy that would help the sites or the admin, I mean, if that's a discussion point, that's, just want to throw it out there that we need to be, doing that part of it.
Well, we put the distance learning policy on hold until we came back. So Anna, if you could put on the ADCO agenda, those two board policies, okay. The board policy and the administrative regulation, and we'll look at those on Tuesday. And then we'll put that, once we look at it at ADCO, then what we'll do is we'll put that back on the board agenda for October 15th for you to approve.
Okay.
Or if you want, we could probably put it on the special meeting and make it super special. Anne says no.
So do we anticipate that those are going to have anything else, or are those going to be super short meetings?
We haven't, it's interesting because typically in September or October, we've done the safety plans and we've done a special meeting for the safety plans. So I'm not sure if you want us to attach the safety plans to one of those meetings, so we're not calling another special meeting. But that might not be a bad idea to do. Mm-hmm. And because the principals don't know that I'm talking about this, maybe the 29th would be good, because at that point, the 29th, you're approving the plan. The safety plans aren't difficult to put together. It's the same plan from year to year. We change the names, but it's still something that we approve. Believe it or not, the safety plans are due in March to CDE. That doesn't make sense to us. It never has, because you write the safety plan for the year. So we have plenty of time to get it approved. We've always approved it in September or October so that people know what our safety plan is for the whole year. But I could look, talk to the principals about doing that in September, the 29th, if you'd like.
Well,
I think about it when we go to agenda setting.
I think we do agenda setting for these. I mean, we haven't traditionally, but
okay.
I would prefer not to have. I mean, we've got 3 meetings this month, and lots of other meetings going on too. So if we don't have to, I would appreciate putting them together if we could.
Okay.
If anybody else has a difference of opinion, that's fine.
We could move it to October too, and just make it part of the regular meeting. It just makes that meeting that much longer.
If I remember right, I mean, I could flip really quick. October seems to be a pretty busy month. If I remember right, it seems kind of busy. Normally, I mean.
Well, and I would anticipate that meeting is going to be, it's going to have a little bit more on it. If you're okay with it, let's put on the 29th.
I like this on the 29th as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Anything else for future meetings or advanced planning? All right, Jerry.
Motion to adjourn.
And a second?
I second.
All right.
Thank you, Nate, Alexander.